Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1455 of the War News stream. And I think that the U.S. is about to take the topsoil off of Iran's soil at this point because it's getting crazy. The U.S. forces are deploying their command aircraft for imminent Iran strikes. Also, some of the largest deployments we've ever seen to the region taking place today. We've also seen that Russia wants to join in on the fun. They're currently sending warships to the Strait of Hormuz for live-fire exercises. And also, Russia is also threatening to seize NATO cargo ships, apparently near Europe. And we have very big news tonight, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear of significant developments within the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, the Eastern Mediterranean, the Eastern North Atlantic, and also the Eastern Caribbean over the course of the past 48 hours. We have been able to hear significant developments as the diplomatic talks between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran within Geneva, Switzerland, have completely failed effective today. It appears that the Iranian delegation has now flown back to Iran to find the deepest, coldest, and darkest bunker that is possibly available, as dozens of U.S. aircraft, vessels, and ground forces have begun transiting into the Middle East just within the past 24-hour period alone, with currently us seeing on Flight Radar 24, much to the dismay of Air Force Major Randos, that there are a large amount of aerial tankers that are currently flying into Europe at this moment, along with even further flights of C-17s, which are flying out of EUCOM and into CENTCOM, with literal conga lines of KC-135s and other aerial tankers now making their way off into the area of the Atlantic Ocean to make it to EUCOM and then further on into CENTCOM. It's believed at this moment, with the massive amount of aircraft that we currently see in the air, which all of these aircraft over New England and Eastern Canada are also all aerial tankers as well, and also along with that there's also a heavy amount of C-17s in this mix as well. it is highly believed that these may be the final preparations for strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which are largely imminent at this point. We're not entirely sure when they're going to be happening. They have a high chance of happening over the course of sometime in between this Thursday on up into the weekend, or they might happen in the next several weekends from now. But it does appear that we are much closer to war with the Islamic Republic of Iran after the failed talks and massive ongoing deployments that are happening today than ever before. We've also seen that humongous deployments of U.S. forces have already been noted within CENTCOM's area of responsibility, with 33% of the deployable portions of the United States Navy currently deployed in and around CENTCOM's area of responsibility. Additionally, the Islamic Republic of Iran has fired missiles into the Strait of Hormuz today and are directly stating that they will shut down the Strait of Hormuz effective today. We have also been able to see that there has been missiles fired into the Strait of Hormuz and within international waters as a result of the Control the Strait exercises that the Iranians are currently conducting, and we've now been able to hear that the Russian Navy may possibly join naval exercises with the Islamic Republic of Iran near to the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman, as a small handful of Russian ships from the Pacific Fleet, or the Far East Fleet in Vladivostok, have made the 6,000-mile long journey to make it down into this area and to be able to try and maybe force the United States to the negotiating table one last time, although that might be fruitless, and we'll get into that analysis later. Additionally, we've also been able to see that uprisings are now happening again inside the Islamic Republic of Iran today, as we are now seeing large crowds of people making it into the streets in cities like Mashhad, Tehran, and even smaller cities in the eastern part of the country, including the city of Abdanan. However, these situations are already being met with a heavy amount of fire, as the IRGC and the Besiege are already firing into these crowds, and we do believe that large amounts of fatalities have already been seen once again today. The Islamic Republic of Iran has also seen that Russian diplomatic flights have been made to the Islamic Republic of Iran within the past 48 hours, and we've also seen that the United States is still moving a heavy amount of equipment into the area, including F-22 Raptors, which arrived at RAF Lakenheath just earlier today. Outside of that, we have also been able to see that the Russian Federation is starting to get into a very bad situation, even by their own public accounts. The Russian Federation's budget is already 5 times larger than the expected deficit at this point this year, which is unbelievable to hear, and it also is showing us that the Russian economy is having an absolutely hell of a time, and not in a good way. The Russian Federation seems to be getting so desperate about the economic situation that we have now heard that the Russian Federation has openly threatened European nations that if any continued seizures of Russian tankers, aka the shadow tankers, continues, the Russian Federation will actually send out their own warships to get into armed confrontations with NATO forces that attempt to seize vessels violating sanctions, and to also attempt seizures of NATO vessels and merchant ships as well, wherever that would be possible, meaning that the Russian Federation is moving to extreme escalations at this point to try and protect the remnants of the Shadow Fleet that are left before they're also confiscated, and the Russians are left with absolutely no economic lifeline. Outside of that, Europe appears to be getting very ready for the upcoming conflict, which appears to be quite obvious at this point, with the Estonian Ministry of Defense stating that if war begins, the Estonians are not going to be defending their home territory, they're actually going to be obliterating the Russians inside their own territory, which is a pretty big claim coming from the Estonians, and I gotta say, good on them. We've also been able to hear that top military officials within Germany and Britain are once again urging the nations to get ready for war, and are rapidly demanding of remilitarization efforts within both countries, as it does appear that a larger war with the Russian Federation is highly likely as the months continue to pass by. Meanwhile, Ukrainian armed forces have been able to announce that they have reclaimed 200 square kilometers of ground within the state of Ukraine due to the Russian Federation's absolutely disastrous decision to shut off WhatsApp and Telegram as communication systems, and to also see that the Starlink company shut off the access in the Russian Federation to Starlink terminals around a week and a half ago. The Russian government has now stated that the Starlink systems were only used to throw the West off, and the Russian Federation never truly was using Starlink systems. But the absolute losses that they've been taking on the front lines within the last week and a half generally shows otherwise, that they have now lost a critical part of their communications and operational structure with the loss of vital comms and also internet systems. The Ukrainian drone attacks have also rained hell on Belgorod, as well as the Kapustin Yar testing range, where the Russian Federation has fired IRBMs in the state of Ukraine in prior times, with Flamingo cruise missile-sized craters now being seen by satellite footage within the Kapustin Yar test range. Oil refineries were hit, along with a significant fire that broke out in Taman, right at the foot of the southern end of the Kerch Bridge, and we've also seen that air defenses have been knocked out inside of Ukraine as well. We've also been able to see that the United States has continued its campaign against narco-terrorist vessels within the Eastern Caribbean, or at least alleged narco-terrorist vessels within the Eastern Caribbean, as U.S. Southcom's Area Responsibility has published additional footage today showing the continuing strikes that have been ongoing within this area. And we have, of course, folks, a humongous amount of news to cover tonight, and that was me trying to get through our summary as quickly as we can. All of these markers here on the left side of the screen, they're in dark gray, are all of the ones that we have to cover today. An entire 48-hour news cycle for the larger part, and we're, of course, going to be making sure to get through the news, starting with our largest stories first, and then working our way on down, as tradition states, to the smallest stories in the night. So with that, folks, we are going to be moving on into the largest story that we have today, which is the developments with the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America. I also want to make it clear for folks, I know a lot of people always wonder, why do I go through the terminology of saying the Islamic Republic of Iran and official government names? I just want to get that out of the way really quickly. With the situation that we're seeing right now on the ground, and also with what a lot of Iranians say, a lot of Iranian citizens do not call themselves Persians, they call themselves Iranians, but that does not mean that they want to affiliate themselves with the Iranian government, which officially is the Islamic Republic of Iran. For that reason, I go through the effort of making sure that we say the official government name, so that way we can make it clear exactly who we're talking about, and also not have a large amount of Iranian expats incredibly aggravated that we're lopping them in with the Iranian government. But with that, it is time for us to move on into the news that we have inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, as we have been able to see today that the Dassault Falcon 900, which was carrying the Iranian diplomatic delegation team to Geneva, Switzerland, has returned back to Iran today, specifically back to Tehran. It appears that the talks were absolutely uneventful, as we predicted here on the channel, and the Islamic Republic of Iran, according to U.S. diplomats, did not make any meaningful concessions, meaning that they absolutely go for hold the negotiations from the very onset, which is exactly what we were expecting on the channel. We had already said many times leading up to the second round of talks that, considering that the Islamic Republic of Iran gave absolutely no meaningful concessions within Muscat, Oman at the last round of talks, it was very highly likely that they were not going to be giving any concessions at Geneva, Switzerland. And it appears that that was exactly the case. We have been able to hear that apparently the Iranians stuck with their guns on saying that the missile programs inside of Iran are absolutely non-negotiable, meaning that they are not willing to put any limits on their missile developments, and they are still going to be pursuing intercontinental ballistic missiles. We also heard that apparently they completely refused, from what we would know, any complete stoppage of their uranium enrichment programs, and most likely we would also assume, due to prior negotiating tactics by the Iranians leading up to the 12-day war and Midnight Hammer, and also up till now, that they also probably completely denied any limitations on even producing weapons-grade uranium, which is a 90% enrichment. We also know that the Islamic Republic of Iran apparently made no meaningful concessions in their funding of terrorist groups throughout the region, including al-Nusra in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and also the Yemeni Houthis within western Yemen. Apparently, they made no concessions on stopping or even slowing the funding to those groups. This left U.S. negotiators absolutely bumfuzzled, considering that many thought in the U.S. government that the Iranians were dying for a deal, as it appears that they're now dying without dying with a lack of a deal for the larger part, because we're now starting to see that now that the Islamic Republic of Iran's negotiating efforts that were largely done in bad faith have completely fallen flat on their face, the largest U.S. Air Force movements, or force deployments that we've seen so far, is ongoing today. As a matter of fact, while we're on air right now, folks, it's going on right now, and I just want to show you all of the aircraft that we have in the air at the moment, according to publicly available ADS-B transponders that are provided to the public, considering that anyone can access this information on Flight Radar 24, that there is a large amount of aircraft that are currently active within this area, including these 4 KC-135 Stratotankers, which are currently transiting over the United Kingdom, and we believe, also by the way, I forgot to mention, out of the 3 Stratotankers, there's actually an E-3 Sentry that's just slipped in amongst them all. This is a U.S. Air Force E-3 Sentry, mind you all, and we believe that most of these are either heading to Kaiserslautern in Germany, or they're heading to the Ramstein Air Base, which are both within western Germany. From there, they'll make the hop on into the Middle East. We've also seen that there's currently 2 C-17s that have taken off from Prestwick and also from Trier within Germany as well, which are currently heading into the Middle East. We can also see another C-5 Galaxy flight that appears to be heading to the Al Udeid Air Base within Qatar, and we can also see as well a U.S. Navy PA Poseidon, which appears to have been conducting some sort of patterns over the area of Bahrain and Qatar as we're live on air right now. Additionally, moving us on over to North America to show y'all the absolute tectonic movement of aircraft that's going on over here right now. Here is the following aircraft that are currently flying while we're on air right now into the Middle East. We currently have RCH-580, which is a C-17 Globemaster, RCH-634, RCH-875, RCH-801, and RCH-891 that are all currently within a very close proximity in the New England and Newfoundland area and are currently heading across the Atlantic and largely towards the Middle East. Accompanied with them is a wide variety of aircraft, mostly including stratotankers, including RCH-237, a KC-46. Let's see, that would be an unidentified transponder, actually, but it is a KC-135. We can also see another U.S. Air Force KC-135, along with a second one, and another KC-135. So in this area alone, we have 5 C-17s and roughly 6 in-air tankers that are currently flying into the Middle East right now, and that's just up within New England. If we move within the...
And then look at that massive line coming from Florida down here, by the way, going up the East Coast. That's an insane amount right there. Literally one behind the other, like mother goose and ducks. It's crazy right here, the way they're going up that coast. This is insane. Like the size of this deployment, this is truly unprecedented for what we've seen. Like even during Midnight Hammer, the last time that the U.S. struck the Iranian nuclear sites, we did not see deployments like this. Like these are on a scale of a much larger magnitude than what we saw last time. Also, by the way, this is just stuff that's going back to Iran, going back to the Middle East. There are already hundreds of fighter jets stationed in the region. There's over 30% of our naval forces currently in the region as well. This is what you would do if you were planning on a prolonged war with a country like Iran. This is what you do, basically, is something of this size. It's truly remarkable to see it.
It truly is. And also, just to move y'all out of New England, because right now there's about 11 aircraft that are currently airborne flying to the Middle East just within the New England area alone. If I move y'all down to the Mid-Atlantic area, we can also see another 5 KC-135 Stratotankers. Every single one of them are currently outbound to the Middle East as well. So right now, just within the United States of America, there's approximately 16, and that's not a miscount, that is 16 Stratotankers as well as supply aircraft in the form of C-17s that are all airborne at one given moment in time, all flying to the Middle East. This is probably one of the largest singular formations of aircraft, although this is such a widespread area, it's not really a formation, but we'll call it that for brevity's sake. It is one of the largest formations that we've ever seen flying in a singular group over into EUCOM to then fly on into CENTCOM. This is an absolutely unbelievably large group, and it already is accompanying wildly large groups that have already been flying over the past 48 hours and also over the past 24 hours that currently are not flying as we're on air right now. We were able to see that nonstop flights had been conducted over the course of the day, even earlier, with a larger number of in-air tankers, mostly KC-135s and KC-46s, and also 2 C-17s, which also flew over into the Middle East earlier today. We then also saw within the area of Malta that it appeared that we were hearing that F-35s had taken off from Lakenheath within the United Kingdom, which is a pretty common stopping point and jumping base for U.S. forces in EUCOM and CENTCOM, and a large number of KC-135s were actually towing these F-35s behind them for the large part into CENTCOM. We actually were able to confirm that as someone on the ground in an unknown location in Europe was actually able to film one of these KC-135s, and you can actually see that apparently...
We cannot watch that.
Well, we can show a frame of it, but apparently within the area of Europe at some point, there appears to have been 4 F-35 Lightnings in tow with the KC-135, which once again is showing us that at least all 6 of these KC-135s probably had 4 F-35s in tow from Lakenheath, which gives you a pretty decent idea of the number of F-35s that we just relocated into the Middle East just over yesterday. Not only that, today we've been able to confirm that just about 2 or 3 hours ago, that it appeared that there was also a little interesting arrival at Lakenheath as well.
Can't watch this either.
Oh, well, that is an F-22 Lightning. I would say that's a little too late. We're already about 3 seconds into a 6-second clip. But that is an F-22 Lightning right there, and we believe that these are also landing as well at RAF Lakenheath to further transit on their way either to Muafak, Prince Sultan, or Al Udeid Air Base within the Middle East, which is once again showing us that significant force deployments are still ongoing at this moment. We have also been able to see that even further KC-135 flights were made out of the EUCOM area responsibility today, with a large amount of pictures and videos being made of these KC-135s and E-3 Sentries flying out of the area. Generally, the two E-3s actually came from Elmendorf Air Base in Alaska, and we also understand that there currently are about another 4 E-3Gs that took off from Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma and landed at Ramstein Air Force Base today, meaning that right now there's about 6 E-3s that had already transited to CENTCOM earlier in the day, and they'll be joined by about another 2 that are currently within the air right now. Y'all can kind of get an idea that just in aircraft movements alone today, this has been an unbelievably large day in terms of movements. We also do understand that the U.S. Navy is still having the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which is outbound in the North Atlantic currently and will be arriving in the Eastern Mediterranean here incredibly soon. We've also been able to see not only these movements, but a general force deployment that has been depicted of the region as of late. And let me show you all that right here. This is currently everything that we have, which this infographic is so cluttered. A big shout out to Eden Ellis, by the way, for going through all the effort to make this. But it is so cluttered, it's really hard to even get a concept of how many forces currently are within the area of CENTCOM's area of responsibility. We can see that the USS Gerald R. Ford is currently transiting through the Atlantic right now, so it is not within theater at the moment, but it will be soon. We also understand the USS Abraham Lincoln is currently there, along with 3 Arleigh Burkes as a part of its escort, and all of the the aircraft squadrons that are also on board the carrier. We also understand that there is an unbelievably large amount of U.S. Air Force assets in EUCOM and CENTCOM that are currently forward deployed at this moment as well, numbering quite literally within the dozens, with an endless stream of supply flights being conducted each and every single day. Not only that, we've now seen that dozens of Stratotankers have relocated in the Middle East, which would suggest a large amount of aircraft conducting a high-tempo, high-intensity operations here within the near future. We can also see a large amount of detached vessels, both within EUCOM and CENTCOM, all of them largely of the Arleigh Burke class from what we can tell, save for, actually all of them are of the Arleigh Burke class, correction there, and it appears that we have roughly about 14 of them, or maybe even 15 of them, that are currently in the area, along with 2 nuclear attack submarines, and also, I believe the USS Georgia is once again back within the area as well, from what we understand. These vessels alone are carrying roughly, I believe, about 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles amongst the lot of them all. So you can kind of get an idea that in terms of amount of cruise missile firepower, that is an overwhelming amount of firepower. We also have a large amount of auxiliary vessels from U.S. Sea Lift Command and the U.S. Coast Guard that are currently within the area as well, which ought to be giving you all an idea this is a fairly large deployment. Not only that, it's not just a large deployment as far as this infographic is concerned. We understand that 33%, literally 1 in every 3 ships that are currently deployed and operational within the United States Navy are currently within CENTCOM and EUCOM's area of responsibility, meaning that a third of the U.S. Navy, a larger grouping than we even saw before the raid to capture Maduro, are currently grouped up and based around the area of the Middle East at this moment. It is an unbelievably large force grouping, and as we've already been able to hear, 126 U.S. land-based fighter aircraft are now positioned or heading towards CENTCOM's theater. The groupings are so large, it would lead one to believe that strikes have to be incredibly soon. As a matter of fact, they would have to be wildly soon, at least here at the moment. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so over the course of the past, I would say about 48 hours or so, we've seen the U.S. deploy command aircraft. Also, we've seen AWACS get deployed as well, which are E-3 Sentries, and also we've seen E-6s get deployed as well, and hundreds of fighter jets. We've literally seen footage showing Stratotankers with about 6 or 7 fighter jets in tow with each tanker heading to the Middle East. So truly an unprecedented deployment, a massive deployment for sure. So when do you think this is going to happen? Because at this point, it is 100% imminent. Like, there's no way around it. It will happen. It's just simply a matter of when it's going to happen. So 48% said there will be strikes this weekend, while 25% said there will be strikes in the next 72 hours, and 18% said we are still weeks away. So the fact that we've seen the E3s and the AWACS heading over there, and also the command aircraft, I would say this is closer to happening than later. I personally believe it's either going to be in the next 72 hours or it's going to be on the weekend. Once again, It's very hard to predict things like this with that level of accuracy, but generally, based on the indications, so like I mentioned, the AWACS heading there and things like that, and also the massive deployments, it looks like it has to happen within a short period of time. So that's what we're thinking. Also, by the way, we have seen the Whiteman Air Force Base, which is the home to the B-2 stealth bomber, literally the only base in the country that houses the B-2. They've currently had I think, a NOTAM in place for their airport and airstrip for the last few days or so. So that's also an indication as well that B-2 deployments could be imminent as well. So I'm going to say strikes this weekend, probably by the latest, but that's just speculation. They could chicken out, they could back out. You never can tell these days. But based on deployments, I'm with the 49%. And Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I am going to have to actually pick two options, the 49% and also the 18%, because it is very clear, folks, that strikes are imminent against Iran. It's just that imminent as in when. It's not a question of if we're going to strike Iran now. The force deployments that we're seeing right now are so large that the question of whether we're going to strike them or not is out of the question. It's now a matter of when we're going to strike them that we're now trying to discern here. That is always very hard to ascertain, especially on the given basis with how the current administration operates, as they operate on a fairly slow sort of I guess you could say, progress marker as far as doing anything in foreign policy. We can see that right now forces would be ready, and they are generally going to be ready to conduct strikes over this weekend, but at the same time, we did not see that was the case with the operation against Maduro. U.S. forces have been deployed within the area of Southcom's area responsibility, and specifically within the Eastern Caribbean, for around 3 weeks at their full-sized forcing before we conducted any raids to take Maduro. So generally, it's usually incredibly slow for military operations to commence immediately once forces are ready. The talks did fail in Geneva today, which kind of weighs a little bit into the idea that it might even be this weekend, but we actually did some interesting looking, folks, at how military actions have been conducted within the last 30 years and when we generally decide to conduct strikes. And there's actually an interesting sort of a pattern that we've recognized here in between short-range actions and long-term actions. Short-term actions that generally are only comprised over a day or two, like say a raid or anything along those lines, almost always happens over a weekend day. So most likely Friday night or Saturday night. Maybe even Sunday night, but that's usually fairly rare. But oddly enough, folks, we noticed that the invasion of Iraq, the invasion of the invasion of Afghanistan, I believe, was an outlier, but the Gulf War began on a Thursday, the invasion of Iraq in 2003 began on a Thursday, and the invasion of Afghanistan began on a Sunday, meaning that there is a high likelihood that whenever Iran is struck, it may be any time in between Thursday night to about Sunday night, and that would be a fairly realistic sort of a timetable to work off of, at least based off of the Department of Defense's historical planning phases and what days of the week they usually prefer to start a war on. So I would say that it is decently likely that we could see strikes on the Iranians possibly as early as this weekend. I wouldn't say Thursday, at least in this perspective, because these airmen that are currently flying into CENTCOM are going to be exhausted. Flying in a fighter aircraft for that long of an amount of time and requiring that much focus to be able to conduct multiple in-air refuelings on a mission that long is mentally and physically exhausting. So for that reason, when they arrive at the Middle East, they're going to probably have to have a day or two where they're just not doing anything and they're trying to recuperate and get themselves ready for more operations. And then after that, it's probably going to take another day or two to get the war plans out and then get them ready to strike. So it's definitely not happening on Thursday. It would happen at the earliest probably on Friday night, possibly.
Yeah, and also, by the way, another thing we have to remember as well is we've not seen the B-2 stealth bombers get deployed yet. And I would personally assess, we'll have to see if Enforcer agrees with this, but I would think that we're going to see B-2 deployments probably in the opening strikes. We're probably going to see those B-2 striking the nuclear sites right off the bat. I would imagine shock and awe is going to be the strategy here when they follow through with these strikes. That seems to be generally the pattern the administration likes to go with. And also, of course, with Iran, you kind of have to. You have to take out their air defense first. Then you have to hit them with the B-2s. It'll probably be very, very strong of an opener to these attacks. So we have not seen the B-2s get deployed anywhere. So they're currently still at their base in Whiteman, as far as we're aware. And we will have to see that first. Last time we saw Midnight Hammer, they deployed B-2s and did a bit of a fake out. They sent them in opposite direction and sent Stratotankers the opposite direction. And it turns out the B-2s were actually heading the complete opposite direction. So we could see that again, but so far we have not seen that yet. Also, by the way, many people are pointing out that they might wait until after the Olympic Games, the Winter Olympics, are over, and those end on February the 22nd, which is a Sunday of the next week. So I don't think they're going to wait that long. Like, it's possible that they might, but I don't think they will. The Olympics have been going on since February the 6th. I think they might attack before they're over. That's just my guess.
I would have to say that I think they're probably going to attack while the Olympics are ongoing. Historically, the Olympics have never really stopped anyone from doing anything because if I'm remembering correctly, I believe the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan during the middle of an ongoing Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, or right before an Olympics, I believe. It was one or the other, and that didn't really stop their planning. Not really, I'll be entirely honest with you all, with the amount of ratings that the Olympics get and also their general dropping, I guess you could say, significance due to the fact that less and less cities are really wanting to host them, and for that matter, it seems as though less and less people are caring about the Olympics. The Olympics probably won't have that much of a play on what's going on in the world, considering that not really that many people care about it, at least at this point in the modern day and age. If this was 30 years ago, it would be a different story, but it's not 30 years ago, it's the present day, and the Olympics just isn't as important or pressing, at least to the public's mind, as it once was. So I would have to say that, in my opinion, I believe that that's probably not going to have much of an impact. And once again, folks, I do want to say that the earliest that strikes could happen would be this weekend. But that does not mean that's going to happen this weekend. We could see that this could still be 2 to 3 weeks out, possibly. And I'm not saying that right now just to, make sure to hedge our statements. But based off of prior actions from the current administration, it's fairly clear that working off of the fastest available timetable is definitely not how they do things. They usually take an extremely long amount of time. So instead of getting forces in the area, getting everyone rested, and then getting everyone on board with the war plans and understanding what's going to happen, and then immediately conducting it once all of that's been achieved, they might have everyone rest, then lay out the war plans, and then let everyone sit on it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then start bombing them. And, that generally would be something that could definitely happen. So I don't want you all to be thinking it's definitely going to happen now, but it's definitely going to happen at some point in between now and possibly even a month from here.
Yeah, also, by the way, I've seen several people saying, well, Matt, why do you think the Olympics are so important that they might put off the strikes? I personally don't think they will. I don't think the Olympics are being put into the equation like that. Some people are bringing that up as a possible reason to delay strikes, but I don't think the U.S. cares at all about the Olympics, especially not the Winter Olympics. They definitely don't care about that. So it's not going to hold them back. Like, I seriously do not think it's going to hold them back. There's pretty much nothing barring the United States from attacking right now. We are seeing this massive deployment tonight of Stratotankers and Globemasters, which does indicate there are still a couple of things that need to be in place before the strikes are actually carried out. But this could all be squared away before the weekend, and that's all we need to actually start bombing Iran. So, I mean, it's very, very possible that we could see it this weekend. It's really, really crazy how big these deployments are that we're seeing today. Pretty shocking.
Yeah, we could definitely see that strikes might happen this weekend. And additionally, folks, we've also been able to hear while this is going on, and I've got to say, folks, the story that we're trying to unpack right now in the Middle East has a lot of moving elements. So I just once again want to recap this. We have just now covered most of the U.S. force deployments that are going on today. We're about to be moving on into the foreign policy developments as far as the ongoing Russian reaction that we're seeing right now, which appears that they've shown up for some sort of a naval exercise with the Iranians. But we also have a lot of news coming out of Iran of their ongoing developments and preparations and deployments inside of their own country. And then, on top of that all, we also have the Iranian public now conducting open revolts again today against the Iranian government. So we have all of that we have to cover. So y'all have only seen about a fraction of what's been going on today surrounding Iran. We're about to get into the rest of it here. So moving us on into the rest of our developments, we also did get to see a little bit of the carrier operations that were published today on pictures showing the U.S. Navy operating nighttime launches, generally of F-35C Lightning IIs of the U.S. Navy, and also EA-18G Prowler electronic warfare aircraft that were also launched as well. Moving on from that, we also were able to see that the Russian Federation has now announced that the Russian Navy will be involved in joint exercises with the Islamic Republic of Iran inside of the Strait of Hormuz. This is a fairly interesting sort of a development, and currently, folks, I tried to look around as much as I could and get an understanding of what Russian ships these are. I'm assuming that they're probably larger, and I'm also assuming that they probably came from the Pacific Fleet, because if we were to show y'all right now all Russian operational navies that could reach this area, they are pretty far away, and I'll show y'all really quickly. So there is the Baltisk Flotilla. Well, actually, sorry. Yeah, it actually is the Baltisk Flotilla out of Kaliningrad, which wouldn't be large enough to get there. There is also the Baltic Fleet based out of Kronstadt Harbor near St. Petersburg that might have also sent these ships, although that's fairly far away. And these ships have a very low likelihood of coming from Murmansk out of the Arctic fleet. That is highly unlikely. The only navy that we know of that the Russians have that would be kind of close nearby would be the Pacific Fleet based out of Vladivostok within the far east of Russia. That is about 6,500 miles away by sea from what I know, meaning that it's fairly far away, but it's still within some practical range of the Islamic Republic of Iran, meaning that the ships most likely came from there. If I was also show you all the Pacific Fleet's vessels, let me go pull this up for y'all really quickly and try and show this to y'all. Let's see. I think it's the Far East Fleet, actually. Let me pull that up. Far East Fleet. I call it the Pacific Fleet because it's in the Pacific, but let me go get this. Far East Fleet ships. Let's see here. Okay, hang on, folks. Apparently I'm getting it. Let's see. Russian Pacific Fleet. Okay, it is the Pacific Fleet, but for some reason it didn't want to show me that. It wanted me to show the U.S. Pacific Fleet. But let me go get this really quickly. And let me show you all the likely ships that might be involved at this moment. Right now, we believe that out of these vessels, it's highly likely that the Varyag might be one of them. This is actually the sister ship of the infamous Moskva, which was obliterated by the Ukrainians in the summer of 2022 and sent to the bottom of the Black Sea. It's highly likely that this vessel may be one of them, as the Russians would probably have to use a larger vessel with a farther range to be able to conduct any military exercises with the Iranians. There's also the likelihood that it may be other vessels of smaller types, like the Udaloy class, which are the second largest ship within the Pacific Fleet of the Russian Federation. We may see that the Marshal Shapovskinov, the Admiral Tributs, the Admiral Vinogradov, the Admiral Pantaleev may also be involved as well. We're believing that these smaller corvettes will probably not be involved in the exercises, as they probably didn't have the proper range from their fuel tanks and their engines to be able to make it 6,500 miles and then conduct a return trip all the way back to Vladivostok without refueling. So it's probably 2 or 3 of these vessels, including highly likely the Varyag and also 2 Udaloy class destroyers that are currently within the area. It's not a large fleet, and it's not a large group at all. And they're currently claiming that they will be conducting a joint exercise with the Iranians, which we believe that they'll just be joining in the Operation Close the Strait, which is currently ongoing right now within the Strait of Hormuz. And this has left a lot of people wondering whether or not the Russians are legitimately going to even be a part of this military drill, or if this is some sort of a larger intention by the Russians to put themselves in the middle of the equation, and because of that, try and force the U.S. back to the negotiation tables with Iran again in fruitless negotiations. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so Russia claiming it's deployed naval forces, also, by the way, alongside the Chinese Navy, believe it or not, to conduct military drills in the Strait of Hormuz. And they say this is going to take place in mid-February. We're currently already in mid-February, so I'm guessing they mean in the coming days, or perhaps even maybe in 5 to 6 days or so. So what do you think about this? What are the Russians and the Chinese Navy trying to do here? 50% said Russia will never show up. They're simply bluffing, while 31% said Russia will merely try to get in the way, and 12% said Russia will face down U.S. forces. So Russia has already made it clear, by the way, that they are not willing to put themselves on the line for Tehran. They've already stated that. So it's out of the picture with that whole situation. So Russia is not planning to face down U.S. forces. If anything, they're virtue signaling and they're also saber rattling. That's pretty much what they're doing. But I'm ultimately with the 31%. Russia probably will show up, but their goal is to merely get in the way. They're trying to make things a lot more difficult for U.S. forces because the U.S. forces naturally, when they have the Russians in the area, they have to make sure to avoid hitting the Russian vessels to not start World War III, and also they have to avoid hitting the Russian delegates that are still inside of Tehran. Because if you haven't heard about that, they currently sent a Russian special delegation aircraft to Tehran, and to my knowledge, I believe they're still there. So Russia's trying to put a whole bunch of their people simply in the way to make it inconvenient and make the U.S. second guess where they strike inside of Iran. It's basically a way to complicate things, basically. It's a form of passive aggression, I guess you could say, by the Russians. So I don't think they're going to face us down, but they will show up and they'll try to get in the way. As for China, I'm not really sure if China's even going to show up. I'm not sure where their ships are even at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
So I'd actually had to be with the I'd generally be with the 31%. They're probably merely going to get in the way because, funnily enough, folks, the ships that I was talking about, they have, I forgot to mention this, by the way, and I saw a lot of people asking, well, what are the range of Russian ships? The range of Russian ships, including the Slava class, is about 6,800 miles, which gives them only about 300 miles extra wiggle room on this voyage to Iran, meaning that if they make any deviations from their current plotted course, they will run out of fuel, highly likely, before they even make it to Iran. And the Udaloy class destroyers have a range of about 10,000 miles. Which is not that far. I mean, like, it's not that far in reality because they make it from Vladivostok, and by the time they arrive at Bandar Abbas, or near to the Iranian coast, they're actually running out of fuel by that point and have to refuel, which is also, importantly, why the Russians would never be able to conduct any naval invasion, or anything for that matter, of the mainland United States, much less China as well. But moving on out of that little rabbit hole, or side note right there, the Russian Navy can show up to Iran, but they're going to be almost out of fuel when they get there. And some people are saying, well, how are they going to refuel? The Iranians are going to refuel these ships. That is a promise, because there's no other way for the Russians to refuel the ships and get them going, because they don't really have any fleet auxiliaries that can refuel these ships within the area that we know of. And on top of that, the Russians also have no support bases within the area to refuel these ships from as well. So they will have to be refueled by the Iranians. But there's also another important factor to note here. There is no ammunition within the entire area for these ships to rearm with. So once they arrive, if they tried to force a confrontation with the United States, and the U.S. called the bluff and actually got in a firefight with these ships, they are 7,000 miles away, approximately, from rearming their ships if they run out of ammunition. Basically meaning that as soon as they try and shoot at U.S. forces, these ships, most likely all three of them, would eventually be lost because they would never be able to run away from the U.S. forces if they started a larger shooting conflict with the United States over this incident. Because of that, even if the Russians get involved in this war game, the best that the Russian ships could do is say, you better not bomb Iran or else we're going to have problems. And then we go, oh yeah? And what are you going to do? And then we just bomb Iran anyways. And those captains are going to go, you know, our orders were to confront the United States and try and force them to negotiate. But at the same time, if we actually try and shoot at them, we're all going to die. So this might not be a good idea. And they'll just slip out of the area and leave.
I don't think the Russians are even going to say that. I don't think the Russians will put themselves on the line for Tehran at all. Like, I seriously don't think they will, because didn't the Russians say, like, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think they had stated that they are not going to be coming to the rescue of Iran. But Russia's basically doing everything short of that. They're giving new helicopters to Iran, and they're having to really spare some helicopters for Tehran, because right now Russia's having a huge problem with manufacturing pretty much anything because their economy is going down the tubes. So all they're doing is providing military aid, and they're also providing basically good hopes and wishes and showing up with their ships. I mean, that's just for show. That I don't think the Russians plan on doing a damn thing.
I don't think they're going to do a damn thing. And even if, folks, they were able to make it past the fueling issue, the munitions issue is the largest problem, because they won't be able to rearm the ships once they expend their ammunition. They would have to make a 6,500 mile trip all the way back to Vladivostok to even get close to Russian ammunition stores to rearm. So if they ever get in a shooting fight with the United States, they have to travel at about 14 knots, because that's how they were able to stretch their range to even get to Iran. They would have to travel at 14 knots, which is basically a fast run, all the way back to Russia to be able to rearm. And not only that, folks, you have to remember, if they escape the USS Abraham Lincoln's carrier strike group, they then have to contend with any of the U.S. aircraft that might be based out of Diego Garcia that might also be able to attack them as well. Then they also have to deal with the fact that the USS George Washington's based in Japan, so they have to pass by another carrier strike group. They would also have to pass by the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Armed Forces generally on the first island chain near Okinawa, and they'd also have to deal with the U.S. Coastal Defense Batteries of the 8th Army that's currently in South Korea, just to make it back to Vladivostok. So they are in a situation to where if they fired their guns at U.S. forces, or if we called their bluff and they actually meant to fire at us, those Russian ships and sailors will not survive to return back to Vladivostok in any scenario. They would literally have to run through a 6,500-mile-long gauntlet to even have a chance at survival, and that's not happening. So these ships are basically there just for thoughts and prayers, but there is no way that they can effectively help the Iranians in any meaningful way. With that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in that situation. And now it's time for us to move internally into Iran. Now that we've covered everything that's kind of externally going on, around the outside of Iran. It's time for us to move on internally. And we're going to keep it on the Russians for just a brief moment because we did get to see that yesterday the Russian Federation flew a Tupolev 214 special flight squadron flight, most likely filled with Russian diplomats and officials, down to Tehran to apparently talk to them. We don't really know what they're talking about, and we think that they might just be there to try and make the U.S. a little bit more scared about bombing Iran, because we're scared that we might squish a Russian in the middle of it, and that could create a pretty big diplomatic incident. So we're thinking that that's what it probably is that's going on right now, but we're not entirely sure, and we'll have to see. They didn't transport weapons, though, I can tell you all that. It's a Tupolev 214, and it is equipped for passenger flights and generally Russian governmental executive flights, so it doesn't really have a large cargo carrying capacity for weaponry. If we saw an IL-76, that would be a different story, but this is a Tupolev 214, so it is definitely a diplomatic flight that sends some guys down to Tehran, most likely. Additionally, we've also been able to see, moving us out of that bit of news and all the way down to the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians have been getting really aggressive with the threats about the Strait of Hormuz. We were able to see that yesterday. Satellite photography emerged showing the drone carriers, the Shahed Bagheri, and also, I believe, the Shahed Madavi, which are such close and similar names. It's really hard to even get them different. But this is the Shahed Madavi, which is like they're really cheap and really crappy drone carrier. They basically did nothing to it. It's a bulk carrier cargo ship. They literally did no modifications to it but painted gray and put these white landing and takeoff lines on the top of the cargo holds. That's it.
Oh. Also, by the way, what are the Chinese are posting satellite images of their buddies? Like, that's kind of crazy. That's this is a picture of the Iranian vessel from the Chinese company. That's kind of fascinating.
Man, meanwhile in China, Xi Jinping's going, oh, you see, I play both sides, so that way I come out on top either way. It's like, man,
they're probably doing this for plausible deniability, so that way they can say, oh, see, we're releasing photos of everything. It's not just of the U.S. vessels, it's of the Iranian vessels, too. They're probably doing it for that reason.
Yeah, probably so. And we also got to see, folks, the equally crappy, also, let me get it, Shahed Bagheri right here, the actual drone carrier with the cannon flight deck and everything. We also saw this
the skateboarders.
Man, I tell you, man, Tony Hawk would do a flip on the front of that thing, a 720 probably.
Probably so.
But beyond that, it does appear that these two vessels were anchored outside of Bandar Abbas last we saw. There's one of them, and I believe that that's the other one right there. But they were just sitting around. Actually, I'm sorry. That's actually the Shahed Madavi right there. There's the two of them. They're basically doing nothing, even in the middle of Operation or Exercise Occupy the Strait, or Control the Strait. They're basically doing nothing, and the entire time they've been moored here and just sitting around. So I think even the Iranians are realizing that these things were more of a propaganda initiative than anything meaningful, because they're not doing anything at the moment, and they haven't been doing anything for days. And that's even in the midst of them conducting a significant operation called Control the Strait. And I actually show y'all a little bit of the footage that the Iranians have published on their state television showing the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps conducting the operations around the Strait of Hormuz, both within Iranian waters and also within international waters as well. When you see this clip right here, they're making a huge production out of this exercise, by the way. They did this again today as well. But they're showing pyrotechnic explosions. They're showing Mi-17s doing a rolling landing. I don't think that's what they call a proper helicopter landing. But then forces are jumping out and being filmed. We see them running through the desert because everybody knows that to defeat the USS Abraham Lincoln, you have to run through sand dunes because obviously the Abraham Lincoln's wandering around in the desert.
Yeah, what are they expecting? They're expecting like a beach landing or something. I don't think that's ever in the cards.
No, I don't think it is either. And we also got to see the speedboats firing off their bottle rockets. They're very proud of that. And we can also see them showing some of the islands as well that they would plan from conducting military operations from and are currently conducting military exercises at this point. We can see them simulating the seizure of another tanker. From what we know, that was actually an Iranian tanker, and they brought out that, oh my goodness, it's the long-brimmed baseball caps and the admiral of the Islamic Republic's Navy looking over the speedboat fleet.
Oh man, is this the Iranian yacht club or is this the Navy? Like, it looks like you're in like a civilian marina or something. This is kind of wild.
Oh look, they blurred it out. Man, they blurred it out because, clearly panning the camera over the APC doesn't give us an idea of what it is. It looks to be some sort of a variant of a BMP. Now we can see this guy yapping about the speedboats. He's like, our speedboats are the biggest and greatest. They're better than the ones you can buy at Bass Pro Shops because we got a Mercury. And then he's like, wait a minute, they sell Mercuries at Bass Pro Shops, inshallah? Oh, damn it. Like, but anyways, we can also see them showing off all the guys out here, saying information. We could also see some guys apparently dressed up as Darth Vader over here on the left, a lot of them. So apparently they're harnessing the powers of the Sith.
Keep them all there. Like, can they keep them there for another week or two, like in that formation? Like, that'd be perfect. What is that thing they're sending off?
So they're sending off the blob because they blurred it out, although they also wanted to show it launching, which makes no sense. It's like, you're showing a video of this thing launching, but you're literally going to blur the thing out on its entire flight path. That makes no sense, but it apparently had some sort of a boat out at sea, because clearly the US is going to be using speedboats a lot like the Iranians, obviously. They also ended up doing some anti-drone actions, even shooting down one of their own Mohajer 6s just for the hell of it.
They're trying to prove that they can shoot their own drones down, by the way, because we shot theirs down like a week ago. So they wanted to prove that, see, we can do it too. So they destroyed one of their own drones.
Oh, yes. The Cornet ATGM, the famous destroyer of aircraft carriers. And let me ask you something, Matthew. What does ATGM stand for?
I don't know, man. You tell me.
Anti-tank guided missile. So, why are they using an anti-tank guided missile on a speedboat?
That might be all they have. You know, it's hard times.
Man, it is all we have, inshallah. Man, like, but they hit the speedboat with it. I mean, you gotta give them that. They also apparently fired a Nebelwerfer at another speedboat, and a whole bunch of drones. I gotta be honest with y'all, folks, with this show of Iranian anti-ship capabilities, I don't really think they're going to be standing that much of a chance against the U.S. Navy. You know, just being a little frank here. You already knew that, but it's not really shocking. Oh, there goes another crapper.
Oh, look. It's the ghetto blaster.
Man, blasting away confetti at the same time. But moving us on,
it's about shooting out a bunch of garbage with it.
Moving us on from the rest of this clip, is basically it's just two guys yapping and showing like tiny clips. I do want to move us on to the other day 2 of Control the Strait, which happened today, and they put out footage of that as well. I mean, holy moly, folks, look at this. Also, by the way, this operation is called Control the Strait because the military exercise is made under the premise that the Islamic Republic of Iran's Navy and the IRGC's naval element will go out into the strait and conduct a blockade long enough for the Iranians to lay a minefield. That's the entire premise of this operation, and also conduct basically merchant raiding, if possible, where they take over any merchant ships that they can and hold the ships and the crew hostage. That was generally the premise of this exercise, which is still ongoing, mind you all. Well, you see them showing some of the tankers that are hanging out around Bandar Abbas. You see one of them right there. They're like, look at this. Look at these weak little cargo ships, bulk carriers, damn bauxite iron ore pellets, or taconite pellets. Oh, look at this guy. He seems kind of scared, like the way he's got his chin all pressed up on his like chest. I think he's a little bit scared of flying in this thing. I would be too, after seeing that that Ricey guy head plant into a mountain in one of these helicopters. I'd be scared of riding in one myself.
And you never know when like screws or something might come loose on these rotors. You never can tell. But you know, the Mossad is all over Iran, so they might have happened to go and see the helicopter for themselves.
Man, you know, after the camera stabilizer turned off here, I think we can get an idea of why this guy's scared. Bro, like, the thing is shaking to hell.
It turns out it's a pilot error the whole time. Look at this thing rattling.
Oh, look, they're gonna fly past it. Oh, they're actually landing on that stupid Salvin thing. But now they're on it. They're like, you see, this is our stupid stealth yacht we built. It's basically like unarmed, and it's not even stealth. And then they show it off a little bit, rocking in basically calm seas. It also fired off what might have been a surface-to-air missile. Huh. It's interesting right there. It looks like it has a tiny little VLS cell on it. Well, isn't that something? Oh, and we can see them finally. Now in day 2, folks, instead of showing off the speedboats and stuff, they're actually showing off the stuff that actually would pose a bit of a threat, at least in a littoral combat environment, which is basically a point-blank naval engagement distance. They're actually showing off the anti-ship missile launchers, both on the Navy and on land. This is what actually would pose a bit of threat to U.S. forces once we try and go into the Strait of Hormuz and start clearing out a minefield if they lay it. Oh! Not the boat!
Damn, son. Not the boat. Oh, no.
Oh, and there they go again. Oh, my God. These little speedboats, by the way, folks, these actually pose, like, a tiny threat. These do. Because unlike the other ones that they usually show off, that have the bottle rocket launchers and the dishkas on them, these actually carry 2 anti-ship missiles each. And while they're not really the best anti-ship missiles, just being straight up with you all, if they do fire about a dozen of these at a destroyer or a LCS, they are going to create a little bit of a crisis, at least at that moment, because they're going to have to shoot down all of them before they reach the destroyer, and you would be dealing with the distance, if these things are fired, of, like, say, 30 miles or less. From a land battery, it would be about the same distance. So, like, the speedboats aren't the scary part. The scary part is that they might make demining pretty difficult. And that's why I say we ought to obliterate this Navy, this little speedboat fleet, before they can pose a threat and lay a minefield. I feel like that would make the most sense at this point. I don't know why we're waiting so long to do that. I think that we need to do that immediately. Like, the first actions the U.S. needs to conduct is suppression of enemy air defense and obliterating that little speedboat fleet and any other Iranian naval vessel, because we can't let them lay a minefield. That is the number one issue here. If they lay a minefield, we're going to be in a world of hurt economically. Militarily, we'll be able to clear it out eventually, but economically, the damage would be pretty significant, and we want to try and mitigate the damage as much as we can.
Also, by the way, you got to watch out for those hypersonics that they have, because, they could launch a hypersonic at our aircraft carrier and take out all 25,000 on board each of them. That's a possibility as well.
Oh.
Of course, I'm joking, by the way, but, it is important, though, to take out their missiles. That way they don't even have the capability to even fire it at a ship. Like, I don't really think that that's a real serious issue, because I'm like, with the proximity of the carrier being right off of Oman, would they even be able to hit the thing with a hypersonic? I mean, of course, it's hypersonic in name only. Like, we know that whole shtick, like they do, kind of like Russia. But the arc, like, those things have an arc on them where they have to have a minimum distance. So is that even a possibility?
It is a possibility, but the problem is that there is no hypersonic missile that can actively track a moving target from what we know. Basically, all of them are made as, like, GPS coordinate-fired missiles, to where they're either honed in on a GPS coordinate or something similar, meaning that they can only fire at a stationary target. So it generally be completely out of the question that the Iranians could destroy a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group, especially with how far they are out, and also due to the fact that even with flight distance involved, even at a hypersonic speed, if they truly are hypersonic, they would never be able to hit the aircraft carrier, because it would take an unbelievable amount of luck and math done basically on the spot by a battery commander to know exactly where the carrier would be when that missile is about to impact the waterline. It would be impossible for the larger part.
And also, I feel like that's going to be like the instant loss action that they could take. Like, if they take an action like that and try to hit our carrier, and if they get away with it and they're able to actually hit it, that's probably going to be the war-ending action for Iran, because I have a feeling that what happens after that is probably going to be remembered in the history books. So I doubt they'll go for it. Like, even if they have that capability, they still want to fight and have a chance to at least think they can win. So they probably won't go for something that crazy, would be my guess.
And I would definitely agree. And also, I saw some people asking a really good question on this topic about, do the Iranians even have enough mines to mine the Strait of Hormuz? They probably highly likely do. It's not an incredibly large area, and if we're just talking about the international waters alone, the international water strait within this area is only about 17 miles wide, and that's really the area that you would have to mine. You don't even really have to mine the area directly along shore, because most ships wouldn't go that close to shore. They'd be scared of running up on a shoal or a rocky outcrop under the water or something along those lines. So you just have to mine about the 16-mile stretch wide, and about as much of it as you can. And the thing about that, folks, is that you don't have to lay out so many mines that if you sail into it, you're running into a mine every 50 feet. You just have to drop a couple in there, because if you drop even 50 mines in that area, the entire shipping lane is completely blocked, effective immediately, because everybody doesn't know where the mines are at. Like, everyone's saying, well, they're like 7 feet below the water, so you really can't see them. And there's 50 of them in there, and we really don't know where they're at. So every time you're sailing in there, you're literally playing Russian roulette with your ship, because you might run into one of those things below the waterline. And that's why you don't even have to have a large number of mines to close the strait. There just has to be the threat that you might run into one of them. And if you do, your ship is lost, and you might also lose your crew as well, and no one wants to risk their life, and also their ship, as far as a company is concerned, passing through an area that's literally got bombs sitting under the waterline, no matter how many of them there are. So it would literally close the strait even with just 50 mines. And I'm sure the Iranians, in reality, could probably lay, if they have about 2 to 3 days to do it, they could probably lay a couple of hundred of them before the U.S. is able to take action against them and stop the laying of the mines. But by that point, the damage will be done, and we'll have to spend a whole load of time clearing out the mines. And I could go, like, also, I see some people saying, well, the U.S. minesweepers will take care of that. But the U.S. minesweepers have to generally handle the situation not under constant fire. And that's why it can't happen immediately. Like, if they lay out a minefield today, we can't go in there today and start clearing it out. There's a whole threat assessment that goes into that, and the threat assessment would be the Iranians are clearly showing in Operation Control the Strait that they do have significant land-based and sea-based anti-ship missile capabilities, which would pose a threat to the lightly armed minesweepers, which are the LCSs. And while the LCSs are designed for littoral range combat, they don't have a whole load of ammunition to be able to defend themselves with. So that means that we would have to first deal with the Iranian anti-ship missile batteries on land and their little speedboat crappers that wander around at sea. That could take days. So now this minefield, after it's laid, has been sitting there for about 5 days at this point, by the time we clear it out for it to be at a minimum safe enough for an LCS to go in and start mine clearing. And then they still might have anti-ship missile launchers that were hiding in a mountain somewhere, in a tunnel, that pop out and then shoot at the ship. And then if they run out of ammo, they then have to stop their minesweeping operations. Actually, every time they come under fire, they have to stop their minesweeping operations. They have to defend themselves. And then once they start running low on ammo, under 40% or 30% ammunition capacity, they have to pack up everything and leave. So that means that that minesweeping operation, while in reality, if they were in a perfect environment where there was nothing going on and they weren't under fire, it would be a pretty quick operation. Under fire in a basically what is point blank range distance for a naval engagement, which is less than 20 to 30 miles, this would take a long time, actually. Even if we're obliterating the Iranians overall, clearing out that minefield would still take time, and that's what we really can't afford. That's why, folks, like, if I'm to advocate for anything, the U.S. has to obliterate the Iranian Navy day one, actually hour one, as a matter of fact. The Iranian Navy and the Iranian anti-ship missile forces around the strait cannot be allowed to exist longer than the first day, or maybe even 2 to 3 days in this operation. The Navy needs to be gone. The mine-laying capabilities need to be wiped out immediately, because I cannot stress y'all enough. The U.S. can beat the Iranians hands down every day in what we're about to do to them. There's no question about that. But if the Iranians get the jump on us and they act first and they lay that minefield, they are going to do some damage to us economically. They're not going to do any damage to us militarily. There's no doubt about that. But they will be able to conduct damage to us economically, and we want to avoid damage as much as we possibly can, and just due to the fact that they can try and lay a minefield, we need to deal with this threat immediately.
I just wonder if there's any way to get around that, because the Iranians are going to naturally have the advantage at all points, because right now, just like we can see it as public information, they can see the massive amount of forces leaving the United States all in one go, like this massive final push of U.S. Stratotankers, Globemasters, and probably more possibly air defense or offensive weapons. They also probably have a bunch of fighter jets in tow behind these tankers as well. The Iranians are seeing that, and they probably realize, now that negotiations have generally fallen apart for the most part, that it's coming. So they might decide, I mean, what's to prevent them from simply, like tonight, deciding they're going to start mining the strait literally right now, knowing that an attack is imminent? Like, they could see that and they could act on it.
They definitely could, and that's why I'm saying that time is of the essence at this moment, and we need to start conducting actions immediately, so that way they don't have longer amounts of time to sit there and dwell on, well, do we want to preempt them and lay this now? And also, I saw someone say, well, if they did that, Iran's economy would also be destroyed. Here's the catch, though. Iran's economy is already in the gutter. Like, that's actually what caused the massive uprisings that happened earlier in January, is that the Iranian economy had already effectively collapsed in the latter part of last year. So if they're laying this minefield, it really doesn't do them a lot of damage, because they're already at rock bottom economically. It does every other country that's prosperous right now, which is everyone in Europe, the United States, North America, really, and the Middle East, along with even everyone else in the world, China and Russia included. It does everyone else badly and then drags them down into the gutter as much as Iran possibly can. They're already there, so they have nothing to lose by doing this action, because they don't really even have an operational economy, and the Iranian banks have already had to prepare and act out on plans that pertain to an Iranian financial collapse. So that sort of an assessment wouldn't really be accurate, because they already have a collapsed economy, and they're working from that perspective instead of possibly threatening a collapse of their own economy. So with that, we are going to be moving on from this little bit of news. Also, by the way, I do have to add in a couple of other things about what's going on around the Strait of Hormuz. We did get to confirm today that Iran did fire missiles into the Strait of Hormuz during the military drills, and we also were able to see, additionally, on land that the Iranians are threatening to once again close the strait. According to Iranian statements, Iran will temporarily close sections of the Strait of Hormuz, according to Iranian state media, as Tehran engages in negotiations with the United States, once again showing that they're clearly trying to use their ability to preemptively lay a minefield and completely blockade traffic in the Strait of Hormuz as a significant point of leverage against the United States, once again showing that they're working in bad faith negotiations. Moving on from that, it is now time for us to get into Iran and all of the news that's happened here. And there is actually a lot that's happened again today. Uprisings are now starting across the country again, and I would actually have to say, folks, that this is much to my dismay, and it actually appears that I'll have to eat my words on this one, because I stated that Iranian protesters, due to the significant amount of deaths that they sustained in January, would probably be too scared to ever go back out into the streets again. It actually appears that I was wrong, and it actually does seem that a large amount of Iranians are now taking to the streets again as of today. We were able to see that within Najafabad, which is just to the west of Isfahan, that there was another large crowd of protesters that did gather and are now actively protesting and rebelling against the central regime in Tehran once again.
In which city did you say these were in again?
This is just west of Isfahan. I forgot the name of the city. I think it's like Najafabad or something along those lines, but it's just west of Isfahan.
Yeah, that's actually it. I was just checking.
We also were able to see...
That is kind of surprising, by the way, because, you know, this is near Isfahan in that video, but, I mean, it's not going so good in other places. And also, they seem to be cracking down pretty quick this time on this type of stuff. So I wonder if that protest is still ongoing near Isfahan, considering the response that they're getting everywhere else.
We're not really sure, and Matthew is definitely speaking of something that's very concerning once again today, because we were able to see that with the Mashhad and Tehran, heavily armed IRGC and besieged patrols are now being conducted once again, as it does appear that uprisings are now attempting to be conducted again inside of the country. These besieged and IRGC forces are armed, and we do believe that they have been given commands to fire into the crowds and kill as many as possible or as necessary to once again put down these ongoing protests and uprisings and to send them back to their homes, though whichever ones are left alive. We also were able to see within Mashhad, which is the second largest city within the Islamic Republic of Iran, another large crowd of besieged and IRGC forces that are now patrolling the streets looking for anyone who's dissenting against the government, and if they find them, they most likely will be summarily executed as usual. We also have in this clip as well another large grouping of them across the street.
Sounds like a little ruckus.
Yeah, it definitely does. All scenes haven't been calm like this today, however. We do have to, unfortunately, report that some citizens have already been shot and killed again today in these ongoing protests, as we did see that within the area of the smaller city of Abdanan, which is near to the Iraqi border, there was another large crowd and gathering that was seen again today, where we were able to see, and really quickly I want to make sure that I get y'all the first clip here in sequence, which is this one right here, that a large group of people had apparently gathered for some sort of a memorial or ceremony, and they started to chant death to Khomeini and other sorts of slogans that have been heavily seen in prior rebellions, uprisings, and protests that have been conducted by the Iranian public. And we saw in this clip here that Iranian security forces were already beginning to move in at that point. You could see that with that armored car there in the background with a machine gun mounted in the cupola. Later, we were able to see a video that showed that they had actively started to fire into the crowd. We do not see anyone dead or wounded in this video, by the way, so it is safe for viewing, but we can see the crowd running in chaos and absolute pandemonium after the original shots were fired, and citizens started to fall to the ground largely dead before they even hit the floor.
Jeez. They're wasting no time this time getting to shooting. Like the last time it took them a while to get to it. This time they're just opening fire right off the bat. And also, by the way, I mean they're showing up to like a funeral service for the protesters that were slain during the last major slaughter that Iran conducted. So they're already creating martyrs, and now they're creating even more martyrs by taking out people showing up to the memorial, which is insane.
Yeah, that really is insane, and it appears that largely within the hours of any sort of dissent beginning again, they've already started to fire into the crowds and kill them. I would say, folks, that at this point, I think it's pretty clear that the United States has a blank check to really do whatever we would want to the Iranian government at this point. Because if I was to list off the laundry list of things that we could conduct actions against Iran for and see that people are held responsible for their crimes in Iran, it's a fairly long one. The violation of nuclear non-proliferation treaties with the production of weapons-grade uranium in violation of the treaty, the support of terrorist forces and proxy forces around the region, including Hezbollah, al-Nusra, Hamas, and the Yemeni Houthis, which have conducted a reign of terror throughout the region, clearly making Iran a designated terrorist state. We also have their continued production of intercontinental ballistic missiles, which poses a strategic threat to the United States of America and a national security threat to the United States. We also see that they're conducting crimes against humanity against their own people, which generally, according to most international law, if we were to go off of the Nuremberg trials example, would be crimes subject to the penalty of death via any means of execution. And we also understand the Islamic Republic of Iran is using blackmail and coercion against the United States of America and the international community by threatening the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which is a vital corridor for the transportation of critical crude oil and fuel resources, which help for us to maintain economic abilities and capabilities here on the home front. For those 5 reasons, we clearly have a more than enough cause on each one of those points, much less all 5 of them combined, to be able to do whatever the hell we want to the Iranian government at this point. And I'd have to say that it's about time. This is one thing, folks. Now, a lot of people have heard us deride in the past the military operations against Venezuela because we didn't really understand what strategic prerogative they were working off of, and also the situation in Cuba. But for years now, we have worked off of the concept that dealing with the Islamic Republic of Iran is highly beneficial to U.S. interests within the Middle East and globally. And I would still stand by that. With those 5 points laid out as far as U.S. security interests and national security interests are concerned, it is obvious to me that the United States should go in and deal with the Iranians at this moment. It's an opportune time and a moment, and I think that soon, I think a day of reckoning is going to be coming around for the Iranian government, and it's long overdue, I'd say. But a lot of people are currently talking about those protests that are going on in Iran that are already being dealt with quite brutally by the Iranian government, with more massacres, genocide, well, more so genocides in a smaller sense, and crimes against humanity once again permeating across the entirety of the nation. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so where do you think this is going? What is going to happen now that we're seeing the Iranian military proactively locking down the capital city of Tehran and the second largest city inside of Iran of Mashhad amid fears of these new protests? We're already seeing that Abdanan, which is a smaller city inside of Iran, is already experiencing some pretty decently sized protests. And also we're seeing some other large protests right outside of Isfahan in a small suburb of that city. So we're seeing the rumblings at the beginning of it. So some people are speculating that maybe they've been tipped off that U.S. strikes are coming soon. We just simply don't know that. That would be way too big of a leap of faith to make that conclusion. But what do you think is going to happen? 58% said massive protests are imminent, while 22% said only if U.S. strikes happen first will the protesters return in full, and 10% said no, the protesters have effectively been silenced, and they will probably not be back out in these massive numbers. And I would say, I've been saying this for a while, actually. I've been saying that if the U.S. strikes occur, that will give the protesters a small bit of leverage to show back up in the street, because now the IRGC will be distracted by defending the country from the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force, while the protesters have a chance to get back out and start basically causing hell to take their government over and take it back for their people. So I'm with the 22%. I think the U.S. strikes happen. That will be basically the permission and opening the floodgates for the protesters to show up in mass. But until then, though, I think you'll remain generally isolated, at least for now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I would be with the 22% as well. I think what we're seeing right now are generally limited uprisings, and I think that the pressure, at least in terms of the uprisings and their frequency in Iran, is beginning to rise once again to a boil, because I think a lot of them are kind of getting the feeling the U.S. strikes are coming soon, and that'll give them the floodgates basically opening wide open to once again start their activities, considering that the Iranians will be fighting a far greater threat at that point, which will be the armed forces of the Republic. So I'd generally say that that would be the case, at least for now. We're definitely seeing some positive developments on the ground and some very unfortunate ones as well in Abdanan, but hopefully we'll be able to see that these folks will be helped out very soon by U.S. airstrikes that might happen over the weekend, and once the pressure is relieved on them, hopefully they'll come spilling back out into the streets, and hopefully this time take any and every measure to be able to see that they come out on top against the Iranian government with the help of the U.S. armed forces. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And moving us out of the protest news, because we have even more news coming out of Iran today, we also were able to see that within the capital of Tehran, some statements have been made. Yesterday, the foreign minister of Iran basically just said a lie and said the U.S. has moved towards recognizing Iran's right to enrich uranium. That didn't pan out in Geneva today, by the way. It doesn't appear that we recognized any right for them to enrich uranium. Additionally, we also heard that the Iranians are getting fairly desperate, and I gotta say, folks, that this propaganda video is one hell of a trip. I mean,
that was a bad sound, man. The way that audio started out, the little echo and reverb, this is about to be cringy.
It's cringe. It's extremely cringe. This is a propaganda video that the Iranians have put out today. Some people like McGregor and stuff, I guess they really, have wet dreams about these kind of propaganda ads. But outside of that, this one was one that was pretty interesting, because it took a statement that Khamenei made today, and it looks to be an AI-made slop video, but it was put out as official propaganda by the Iranian government, and I've just got to show it to y'all. I'm going to turn the audio down because it is blasted out. I mean, it's terrible sounding, but I will let y'all hear it and see it a little bit, because they are absolutely hyping themselves up to the epitome. They are desperate at this point. But anyways, here's the clip. Oh, look, it's our boy Khamenei. I like
Khamenei. Khamenei sounds like he's about to lay down a rap track or something like that. Like, what is his voice?
Man, I hope you crash into a bus full of man, he's about to start that little line. But also, I gotta say, so ravens exist in the Strait of Hormuz, like they just fly out there. And also, what aircraft carrier has a flagpole at the bow where the aircraft are being launched off of? I have many questions here. What is this, a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 intro? Like,
I would have loved to have seen the prompt for those.
Oh my god. Oh my god. This is ridiculous.
My gosh.
Now they're playing piano after that?
This whole thing is copyrighted.
That might be, actually. We're going to have to mute that. But we can now see the Shaheds that are now jet-powered. Actually, there are Shahed F-35s just swarming the Lincoln and obliterating it, apparently.
But the Shaheds can't even launch. Why did they show the Shaheds launching, like, missiles from them? Like, was the Shaheds impacting, or were they launching missiles?
Apparently, they were launching missiles and impacting, so just dual purpose stuff, normal sort of a deal. Man, this must be that video that guy watched today to say that the Iranians could destroy all of our carriers. This must have been the one. Anyways, we then see a U.S. soldier just running through the south lawn of the White House. Like it's a movie, like this is the movie Gladiator. Like he's running back to his house to see that all of his family have been killed by the Emperor of Rome. I don't really get this one. And apparently the ground is muddy in front of the White House. So
he just ran straight in the front door. It was wide open. So we don't keep the door open, wide open to the White House, by the way. Also, by the way, we don't use couriers. Like Iran is stuck in like the 1700s, 1800s. We don't have Paul Revere on the horseback running around bringing messages. We simply send a cable. It's not this difficult. And also, the soldiers don't run straight in. What's Trump doing standing there waiting in the front door for him? He's definitely not waiting in the front door. I promise you that.
Bro, also, man, is this blood holding the Declaration of Independence? Because that looks like parchment to me. Like, what the hell is that?
Man, I don't even know. He's got the Constitution with him.
Man, and also, I like how they put in the AI prompt. They must have made this clear. Make sure that the president is wearing solid black so that way it looks like he's at a funeral, basically. Very, very, oh, damn, they got that trap beat. And now they've given over the Articles of Confederation to found the United States with, apparently. all the aircraft carriers in the Middle East have been sunk, Mr. President.
Oh my God. That's awful. Look at that.
Oh, and then they put a picture of the president where he looks sweaty. Like, oh my God. Oh, now they're showing the caskets, the American caskets. Like, yeah, that's a huge symbology thing for the Iranians. And now they go back to the carrier with a crow on it. Oh, if it flies away, this is
Mr.
absolute
President,
cinema.
all the aircraft carriers have been sunk, Mr. President. It's like, oh, yeah, I doubt that. How stupid. Like, this stuff is, who is this intended for? Is it supposed to scare, or like America? Is it supposed to appease the Iranian audience? Like, who the hell is this even made for?
Man, I don't even know. I have no clue. And we also were able to hear that apparently, according to Santa Claus, I'm sorry, Mohammad Reza Naqvi, he stated that the U.S. has already been defeated. I've got to show you all this because this is a treat. This is an absolute treat. I'm actually going to mute the audio and just read you all the subtitles so you can hear what Mr. Santa Claus said for all the Iranian people today. This guy's a general in the Iranian military, by the way. Even if the United States deploys all 12 of its aircraft carriers near us, it won't be able to do a damn thing. America has certainly been defeated and is incapable of any aggression. Already? We haven't even gone to war with them yet, and they're claiming that we're defeated. Dang, they live in real fantasy land. You know, Matthew, this is the land of fairy tales here, the Islamic Republic of Iran, because how in the hell can you even defeat the United States before they ever even fight you, you know?
Yeah, really.
Therefore, it should focus on its own domestic affairs. It should complete the deployment of the National Guard in its own states. Don't know what that even means. How can our officials... He just
almost trip and fall just right there. You see him just almost trip. He almost busted his ass like over like a bump or something. Like, go back. You're about to see him. Watch it. He's going to take a step down and just go almost crashing.
Blood said Blood said the United States of America is defeated. He can't even defeat the damn curb. Like the curb almost beat him. Oh man. Also, by the way, this reporter asked, this is a real question, folks. How can our officials frustrate America's plans? Wow. That sounds almost North Korean, honestly, with the wordage. But anyways, America is already drowning in frustration and global humiliation. Yeah, but you know what we're not drowning in? Free healthcare, because the military costs so much. So, you know, I mean, they might learn that one. The U.S. president is currently mired in a corruption scandal, according to this guy. Also, America's relations with closest allies like Canada and Europe have deteriorated to a level that is on the brink of war. The United States is finished, is what this guy says. Now, I think the U.S. force deployments in the Middle East generally shows otherwise. You know, like, yeah, our foreign policy relations with our allies is certainly not grand, but that doesn't stop us from bombing Iran today. You know, it's like that's kind of the problem I think this guy is missing here with the whole propaganda story. But the Iranians are trying their best to put their best foot forward, at least in trying to really pose a threat, because we did hear that a large amount of transport-erector launchers were on the move around the Kermanshah area in western Iran, which is the pre-deployment location for firing large missile attacks at Israel. So it does appear that they are preparing for some sort of larger military actions from what we can tell. Up in Tabriz, we also saw that there was a large explosion at the Nikgas oil company within the area. You can see that right there. That happened yesterday. I wonder who did that. It's a big question to me. Who did it? Who done it?
It's kind of ironic too, since the Iranians keep saying they're having gas explosions all over the country, that finally an actual gas plant actually explodes. That's almost like something that's like a funny gag, like the Mossad or somebody did just to like make it actually fit.
Yeah, it kind of does, honestly. And also, we got to see that apparently, according to some information that was unveiled today, according to Visegrad 24, they had received information from sources in Iran that the Islamic Republic's regime stored military ammunition inside the Imam Khomeini Hospital in Urmia yesterday. The regime plans to use the ammunition against anti-regime protesters in case new protests erupt in the city. So that is also ongoing within the northwestern part of the country as well. But that is generally all of the news that we have out of the Islamic Republic of Iran right now. And it's time for us, folks, to move on into the little bit of news that we have out of Syria, and then the rest of the news that we have out of Europe and also the Eastern Caribbean. But before we do that, folks, I do have to say that this has been a heck of a night of news so far, and we still have a little bit to go, a good bit to go, as a matter of fact. But before we get on into all of that, I got to thank all of y'all so much for watching so far in about an hour and a a half, we've had 100,000 people watch the show, and about, I think it was 19.1 thousand people were here at the peak, and we're always greatly honored and highly appreciative to know that a lot of y'all consider us to be your primary source of news and listen to us day in and day out to know what's going on around the world. Before we move on into the rest of our news that's covering different corners of the world, particularly the ongoing war in Ukraine, I want to make sure that we get 3 questions from the chat and then move us on into the second segment of the news. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so let's jump into our first 3 super chat questions. And our first one here goes to none other than Hugh. And thank you very much, Hugh, for that $100 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Hugh said, boom, awaiting orders. And I'm not sure how you have not received any of my messages asking for op details. I just downloaded any powerful military tool called Max. And I hope to hear from my CO soon. Your loyal soldier, Lieutenant Dan, sent by Max, date January 2nd, 2026.
And thank you so much for the humongous support, Hugh, and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I sadly have not seen your messages, actually, recently. I'll have to try and see if we can look around a little bit and find those. But beyond that, I do thank you massively for
It was a joke. It was a joke. I think he's talking about Max Messenger, you know, the crappy Russian app they're trying to get everybody to go over to. He's not saying that we actually send messages or something.
Oh, thank God, dude. I was like, wait a minute, did you send us messages? Where? I was like, huh?
No, we don't have Max Messenger. Trust me, we definitely don't have that.
Well, I do, and it works really well. This cool guy called Ivan from the FSB, he contacted me yesterday and said I was a recipient of $50 million US, and all I had to do was give him my social security number, my credit card number, the 3 numbers on the back. It was a whole deal, and I gave it to him, and he said that I was now going to get $50 million. I haven't seen it yet, but, you know, it's coming, I'm sure.
Man, I don't know what you're talking about.
Man, he's like, man, I don't even know. I'm just kidding, by the way. That didn't happen. But beyond that, I do have to say a humongous thanks to you for the support, Hugh. And I got to say that I hope you do hear from your CEO soon. And a humongous thanks to you so much once again for that unbelievably massive support and helping us to keep this channel running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible day in and day out. It's a wonderful and amazing thing to know that folks like you help this channel to keep on running, so that way we can keep this news rolling out every single day. We try our best to make sure that it's the highest effort, highest quality news that we can put out, and I hope that today we've once again met the mark so far, and we still have a lot to go. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well, and with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our second one here is going to go to Chris Feilbach, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Chris, as well, for throwing in that generous support. He said, Enforcers, your call has to actually read this on the air. And he said, LSA request, which one of you fine people can read Arabic? And I need to know if my AI-generated image... wait a minute, hold on. I gotta exercise the option here. I'm going to not read that part off right there. I don't know about that last part right there about the 72 different ones. I don't know about that. So, I'm not sure. I'm sure we got some people in the chat that read Arabic. I'm pretty sure, because we have folks of every type of language in the chat. So I don't know if they can help you with that though. That's interesting. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I thank you for the support, Chris, and I actually can read Arabic in very limited instances. My understanding of Arabic is heavily crude. Like, I don't really know a lot of Arabic. I'd probably tell you that I know more of Russian, Ukrainian, Italian, German, Spanish, or French before I ever said Arabic. So I do thank you so much for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep running. But sadly, I just don't think we know Arabic well enough to look at those images and know if the text was correct or not. And I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running once again, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and keep it running, so that way we can keep covering news like this every day. And so with that, the huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
In our last super chat of this segment, at least, it goes to Hokey Redneck, who puts in a $50 support, and thank you very much, Hokey, as well, for that generous support. He said, do y'all think that Saudi and Israel will help? I think Israel's certainly going to help, like definitely so. It's going to be a coalition effort, by the way. Like we're seeing the UK is probably going to be involved in it. I mean, it's going to be a lot of countries involved in this. Definitely Israel for certain, because they're in the region, and Israel's been like raring to go. Like they want to get in there and take out that ballistic missile program. So they're definitely going to be in it. I highly doubt the Saudis are going to be involved though. Like they'll probably stay out of it for the most part, is my guess. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think the Bionicles will probably remain removed from the situation at the moment. I think it will most likely just be the Israelis and possibly even the British as well. I would say that I'm actually a little bit doubtful that the British will be involved, because the British are probably moving larger amounts of forces into the area for defensive purposes, generally to protect Jordan and Qatar, considering that they have pretty heavy diplomatic and military alliance relations with those two countries. And that's probably what most of the British air forces that are being moved in the region are for. But the Israelis are definitely going to join in, because if you ever give a chance to the Israelis, just being kind of straight up, to bomb anyone, they're going to do it. So they're definitely going to bomb Iran because they have a lot of reason to do it. But like, and I'm not saying that just to kid around. I mean, like, they actually will just go out of their way to do anything anywhere in the region. I mean, like, as soon as Jelani took over Syria, literally within the hour, they were already bombing Syria. So, it's definitely possible that they will be joining in military operations against Iran. So I'd be highly confident that it mostly will be the Israelis and the United States at a minimum. But I don't really know about the Saudis. The Saudis kind of seem to be playing this little weird deal right now, because they know that it's necessary to bomb Iran, but they also don't really want to get involved in that, and they really don't want to see it happen at the same time. So they know it's necessary, but they also don't want it to be necessary. That's kind of the middle ground that they're currently stuck in, and it doesn't really seem that they're going to probably join in for that reason. Now, if they get struck by a missile, then they might join in. But there's also a decent likelihood that they might just try and overlook that and ignore it if it happens. We'll have to generally see how they want to play it out. Or they might be that once the U.S. starts striking Iran and the Israelis start striking Iran, that maybe the Saudis would hop in. But we're still not really sure about that. But, of course, I hope that y'all have enjoyed our story of the Israelis and the Bionicles, because we all love talking about the Bionicles. I hope that a lot of people are catching on that joke.
They said that man had the bionic something. I don't know about all that.
Man, I tell you something, man. Jeez. But anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on from that little bit of news and that question as well. And I got to thank you so much for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the rest of our news. And I'm sorry that I'm going here and there. I'm about to sound like one of our prior presidents. Hit him again. But I actually do have another piece of news that I forgot about in the Middle East that we do have to cover today, which does change a little bit of the metrics going on right now. The Yemeni Houthis have attacked a ship down near the Gulf of Aden. According to the UK MTO today, an incident in the Gulf of Aden did occur, and it appears that 70 nautical miles southwest of Aden, Yemen, a vessel was approached and hailed by one white skiff with 5 persons on board. This was followed by an exchange of small arms fire. An exchange of small arms fire makes me believe that the merchant ship was armed, and they apparently fired back, because generally you wouldn't say an exchange unless if the merchant ship was firing back at them. So whoever was on this ship, they were rolling the block armed with the Glock. So I'm pretty impressed with that one. But beyond that, 2 additional skiffs were also reported in the vicinity, and authorities are currently investigating. We do believe that this is the Yemeni Houthis, and apparently they're starting their attacks on merchant shipping within the international waters in the Gulf of Aden and the general area of the southern Red Sea. Again, this might be the beginning of that. So with that, we will be moving on from that additional piece of news that we got in the Middle East, and now it's time for us to quickly move on over into the Eastern Caribbean. The U.S. Southcom Area of Responsibility is back to apparently targeting and destroying alleged narco vessels. We can see one right here. Now, I'd have to tell y'all, now, I would say that it's alleged, but I'm pretty damn certain this was one, because this thing has 5 outboard motors.
Man, this thing's more like kitted out than a race boat. Also, by the way, what's up with the actual vessel itself? Is it got like armored compartments in it or something? I mean, this right here is probably the most sauce of all the ships that they've hit.
Yeah, I'd have to say this one's really not alleged. This one probably is confirmed, because no fisherman out there, folks, is going to waste money on 5 outboard motors. Like, the fish ain't running. You don't have to chase them down, so you don't need 5 outboard motors. I mean, that is pretty clearly a narco-terrorist vessel right here. But they did obliterate the thing with a Hellfire.
Oh my God. The crazy part is they claimed that they were fishing for blowfish. But it turns out it was a different type of blowfish, not one we're familiar with.
Man, on that boat, man, they were saying, "I'm dreaming of a white White Christmas. Would be shit like,
the only blowfish these people are familiar with are the ones that jumps out of the water and be like, "Hey, you got my load?" Like, hey, here you go. Here's your shipment.
Man, they'd be looking for that Fent fiend. Like, man, you got my shit. Like, man, oh man. But anyway, so he also saw this other vessel, once again fitted out with what appears to be 4 or 5 outboard motors, and with some sort of pile of crap in the middle, which we're assuming is bricks of coke or something along those lines, got obliterated as well. And it did turn into a pyre of fire on the sea, so quite interesting to see there.
Damn.
We also,
now we're gonna have a whole uprising of the blowfish in the entire ocean. They're gonna be like, "Hey, they took out my shipment. Get them, boys!"
Oh man, it's about to be. Let's see. Crack Wars 4: Return of the Fent Fiend. Like, bro, let's see.
Just schools of blowfish heading for the border.
Man, we gotta stop them. We gotta stop the blowfish. But anyways, moving on from. Out of the Eastern Caribbean, we also were able to see, moving us on into Europe, that there was some fairly interesting developments in European rhetoric today. For one, the Estonian Ministry of Defense today, or the Estonian Foreign Minister in particular, stated the following: "In case of a war, we will move the war to the territory of the Russian Federation and strike deep into the country. We know exactly what to do." That was according to the Estonian Foreign Minister. The Estonian Foreign Minister, he ain't playing no games. He's trying to get up on that Sikorsky level of foreign ministry. If y'all know who the Foreign Minister Sikorsky is, he's the Foreign Minister of Poland. I believe he's actually the Deputy Foreign Minister. But he's made quite a name for himself because he's a no BS, no games kind of a guy and kind of just states it for what it is. We also heard that military officials in the Federal Republic of Germany and the United Kingdom are apparently demanding that military rearmament begin, and are trying to have the governments urge every individual citizen for the preparation and possibility of a war with the Russian Federation. Tensions are wildly high in the region, and for a good reason, as it does appear that war with the Russian Federation is still a high likelihood, as tensions are still remaining high. And today, we really know why. The Russian Federation has issued a threat today, or a warning, whichever way you want to put it, but the Russians have stated that they could deploy their navy to prevent European powers from seizing its vessels and could retaliate against European shipping if Russian ships are taken. That was according to a threat that Reuters republished today in one of their articles. And that is quite an interesting development right there. You know what's interesting, folks, is that the Russians have continued with this statement throughout the war for 4 years that none of the shadow tankers are Russian ships. So according to their own logic, all of the ships that we've seized so far aren't Russian. But now they're admitting that all the shadow tankers are Russian, and they're saying that if any of them are touched, they are going to directly retaliate and try and either stop the seizures, or they're going to start seizing European shipping as a counter. That's a fairly interesting threat right there, and that sounds to me like we're getting fairly close to the brink of war, because the Russians actually tried to follow through on that, and they just tried to start retaliating against general European vessels that are not violating international law, or currently have any sanctions imposed against them. That would technically be an act of war, directly. Messing with ships is usually one way to get people shooting at each other. And a lot of people are wondering, what in the world is going to happen, proper English there, as a result of this threat that was issued today. Are the Russians going to do that, or are they not going to try and mess around? Because that would probably come with disastrous results. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so as far as I'm aware, Europe has not really seized any Russian ships, like any Russian flag ships, that is. But there's been a lot of Shadow Fleet tankers that have been seized by the United States, and I think some of them have been seized by European countries as well. So that's what we've seen. I think there might have been one vessel that Estonia might have seized that was alleged to have been in a smuggling operation that was a Russian flagged vessel, but that's a very, very rare occurrence. That's not something that's usual. So what happens now that Russia's threatened to seize EU and NATO cargo ships or tankers if more Russian ships are seized? 68% said Russia will not risk doing that, while 15% said Russia will do it very soon, actually, and 14% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I think that Russia might actually try to do this. But the problem is, though, it's like, where are they going to go to seize one of these ships? Because they really don't have a place to do that. Estonia has a chance to do it because, of course, the Russian ship has to pass by Estonia, and that's where they have their chance to grab it. But the Russians really don't have that chance unless they plan on doing something from Kaliningrad. So I'm not really sure about this. I think they want to do it, and they would, of course, come up with any justification they needed to actually pull it off. But I'm not sure if they'll actually be able to pull it off in reality. So I'm sort of with the 14%. I'm kind of 50-50. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, I don't think the Russians would risk it. I'd have to go with the 67% because I'm kind of leaning a little bit on like the middle line between they wouldn't risk doing that and it's a 50-50. Because generally this would come with a lot of risks. And technically, if the Russians try to get involved in protecting a shadow tanker, then at that point, it's clearly showing that every shadow tanker is a Russian vessel, which is something that they've adamantly denied themselves throughout the whole war. And then that would give everyone the blank check to go and start seizing these ships, because technically they would be conducting economic operations directly in line with the Russian Federation's government as Russian vessels, and that would generally blow away the whole cover that they've been working with for the shadow tankers the whole time. At the same time, they also might try and do that because, well, like, it's a 50-50, or this is why I'm kind of leaning in that direction as well. They might also try and protect their ships because it's their only economic lifeline at this point to make any money. And if all of them are eventually seized, they're not going to have any way to make any money at all, meaning that their fate is sealed, guaranteed. They can't even try and prolong the suffering to their inevitable fate. Their inevitable fate would come sooner rather than later. So I would say I'm still with the 67%, but I'm definitely kind of also leaning a little bit towards the 50-50 crowd as well. But I do have to remind y'all of this meme, because right now, man, this is the Russian government. Hey, friend, listen, I know the world is scary right now, but it's going to get way worse. Man, like, that's
It's going to
them
get
right now.
way worse, Bliad. It's going to get so much worse, Bliad. You know what's crazy is the Russians, even though they're like literally on death's doorstep when it comes to their economy, they're still doubling down the Ukraine war, saying they're going to live on bread and water, and also basically let their whole country get killed in the war, basically. They're also sending a whole bunch of stuff they can't even afford to send to Iran to try to keep them afloat while Iran's about to fall. And now they're trying to see if they can get their ships down there in the Hormuz Strait to see if they can get tied up in a war with the U.S. Russia is making like all the worst possible decisions. Like, they are making horrible decisions, and they're still acting like they're a superpower, which is insane because they're obviously no longer a superpower. They're barely surviving at this point. They're basically, I mean, I guess you could call them basically a welfare state, because China's essentially bankrolling the whole country at this point through dual-use goods and also financial support to keep them running. So it is going to get way worse, much worse actually.
Now, I had to ask a question, Matthew, of the little AI that lives in Google about whether it's Russian tap water is safe to drink, because I was just wondering, if they're living on bread and water, how long are they going to be living before the water poisons them? And the answer is not long, because according to the AI overview, while tap water in major Russian cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg is generally treated and safe for brushing teeth or cooking, it is not recommended for direct consumption due to old infrastructure, high mineral content, and potential contamination, according to Reddit users at least. Locals typically use filters, boil water, or purchase bottled water, which is affordable. So apparently, if they're going to be living on bread and water, I don't think they're going to be living that long, because the water quality in Russia is about equivalent to that time that Flint, Michigan found out that their lead-made pipes were generally leaching heavy amounts of lead into their water supply. That's no longer a problem, by the way. A whole bunch of Flint, Michigan people are about to just pop up out of the woodworks in a minute and cuss us out for that one. Our water's not bad anymore. I know, but still, your city is known for that nationwide. Like, that's the only way most people know of Flint. So, they ought to call it Lead, Michigan, because you're highly more likely to find lead there than Flint. Anyways, moving on from that moving on from that crappy punchline. Living on the bread and water thing is going to be working for them. We did also get to hear within the Russian government a couple of other interesting things today. One, we did get to hear that some Russian military bloggers like Maxim Kalashnikov, what a hell of a name, are beginning to notice apparently the dire situation that they're in at this point. The dangerous moment will be the attempt of the final escalation. Why the last one? Russia simply doesn't have the resources for the next ones. After all, the war must be ended in a way that'll have something to show for it as a victory. And since capturing either Kiev or Odessa is now out of the question, there's only one option left: the rest of the Donetsk region. This is precisely where the Zelensky regime is digging in, hoping to break the Russian leadership and prevent it from declaring victory. This is one of the stumbling blocks in the grueling negotiations. The final escalation may not be a nuclear strike, we can forget about that, but the capture of that very remnant of Donbass. Also, they spelled Donbass like Don... ass, like instead of Donbass with one S. For what you will have to do is carry out a mobilization of at least 500,000 reservists to avoid a public finance disaster, convert bank deposits of the population into government bonds, basically seizing everyone's money. Even if the final escalation is carried out in the Baltics, the two steps outlined above would still be necessary, but they would also provoke extreme public outrage, a sharp economic downturn, and an exacerbation of the migrant problem. By the way, for the Russians, propaganda-wise, they always talk about how the West is being torn down by immigration of foreigners. They actually are replacing everyone who's killed in the war in Ukraine with generally migrant workers, primarily from India. So they're basically literally just going in the face of their own propaganda initiative. Russia doesn't do that, and they're doing it. But anyways, beyond that, since I don't need to tell you how fragile the rotten post-Soviet structure is, you understand perfectly well that the final escalation could lead to, especially in case of failure further. So it appears that even Russians are beginning to catch on to the whole strategy just doesn't really make sense. And it doesn't work at all at this point. I mean, there's literally no way they could even try and get victory out of the clutches of defeat. They are quite truly in the clutches of defeat with no escape to a victory. And there isn't even a way that in most Russian minds they could think of doing that by escalating into a larger conflict with NATO, which we've even analyzed on the channel, might be their last-ditch wildcard effort to see that they might get negotiated settlements in Ukraine or largely with NATO as a whole. Even Russian citizens seem to believe that that would be fairly unlikely. We've also been able to see that the Russian economy is imploding. Russia's consolidated budget deficits for 2025 has surged to a historic 8.3 trillion rubles.
Holy moly. Let's see here. Wait a minute. 8.29 trillion. Let's see here. 8 trillion rubles to USD. 104 billion 777 million $6,400.
For America, that would be like nothing. But for Russia, that's a lot. Like, that is a whole load. Because right now, folks, the Russian economy is at about $1.7 trillion or somewhere around there, we think. So that means that right now, the Russian government budget deficit, just in about a month and a half, has already reached 10% of their GDP just in 1 year. Well, not even 1 year,
That's
1 month and a
insane.
half. It is insane, I'd have to agree. Revenues across all levels grew by 6.5%, but spending jumped by 13%, widening the gap dramatically. The federal treasury alone accounted for 5.6 trillion rubles of the deficit, 5 times higher than originally planned. The regional budgets posted a record 1.5 trillion ruble deficit. Even the Social and Pension Insurance Fund ran a deficit exceeding 1 trillion rubles. What makes this more striking is that the deficits are rising despite repeated tax hikes. There's been a VAT increase to 22%, income taxes have been raised, new levies and fees were introduced, and the budget hole is still rapidly expanding. Oh, man, that word. But anyways, economists warn this reflects deeper structural weakness because, the budget hole expanding, that's not good. Growth has slowed sharply while war-related expenditures continue to dominate state finances. The state keeps reaching deeper into everyone's pockets, and the hole keeps getting bigger anyway. At this point, Russia's budget management looks less like economic policy and more like trying to plug a sinking ship. That's very observant of the business basics right there, I'd agree. More taxes, more pressure, and even a bigger deficit. It appears that the Russian government really had to lean heavily on the Russian Orthodox Church Patriarch Kirill last week to say, stop praying for money, have not the money, because the government's out of money. And that kind of connects the two together. The Russian Orthodox Church, they don't really view Christendom or religion as a religion. They basically just view their religion as the Russian government, and they just pretend like it's a part of Christianity when it really isn't. And that's clearly seen here because it was literally just Sunday, folks, that the Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, Kirill, said, stop praying for money all out. And now we're hearing that the Russian government is literally bleeding dry its own self because there's not enough money to keep paying for everything. And this makes me wonder, Matthew, what is the Russian government going to do in this whole economic quagmire? I mean, this is not an economic quagmire. This is an economic hell. What are they going to do about it? And what are you thinking that they're going to do about it? What is everyone else thinking they're going to do about it?
So I think the bird is soared at this point. The Russian budget has flown away like a dove looking for some water or something like that. It's just having a hard time right now. It's soared 5 times higher. It got 5 times higher in altitude this time. Fly high, birdie. But apparently this is unexpected for Russia. It's 5 times higher than expected in 2025. And here's the worst part: the worst is yet to come, in the Russians' own words. So they know it's about to get bad, and they're saying it themselves. It's already horrific. Right now, they're literally basically living on bread and water as it is. So what are your thoughts? 46% said Russia will just let the citizens suffer, while 23% said Russia will suffer some sort of civil uprising very soon, and 17% said Russia would get more help from China to supplement the issue, and about 15% said Russia will be forced to stop the war. And Russia's made it perfectly clear they are not stopping the war. Also, I'm not sure how much more help China can give. So I'm kind of ruling those two options out. So we're left with civil uprising or more suffering. I have a feeling it's going to be a mix of both. It's going to be definitely more suffering, that's for damn sure. So the Russians are unfortunately in for a whole bunch of trouble, at least for the civilians. Putin will live high on the hog because he has a lot of money and he uses the government like his personal piggy bank. So I would say, when is the moment that people have had enough? And I think Putin knows that moment is coming very, very close. And that's why he's trying to basically get a crackdown on the civilian population, including the military. So that way, once people realize that they're basically in hell, basically here on Earth, that they really can't do much about it because they're being surveilled so closely that the moment they try to have an uprising, it'll be detected and put down by the FSB. So I think mainly it's going to be suffering. They'll probably try a civil uprising, but it probably won't get anywhere, to be perfectly honest. The FSB is pretty competent at domestic security. But Enforcer, what say you?
The Russian Federation is all out of money, as he holds a gold cross wearing gold with a gold crown. Oh, we're all out of money. Money gone. Stop asking for money. Now, I gotta be honest with you. When you look at these, I mean, do you know how many outfits this guy has? He has like 10 of them. Like, I like, this is one of them. Then he has the Snow White outfit here, also coated with like platinum and silver, I'm guessing. Then he's got this one here, which is like the Santa Claus outfit. And then he's got this one. I guess he's supposed to be a hound dog or something like that with those ears. I don't really know. And then he's got, let me see here. Where were the? Oh yeah, he's got the pimp purple one as well. And then he's got, let's see, let me make sure that I get all of them here. He's also got the other Santa red one. This one's different than the last one y'all saw. He's got the solid black one. And I mean, all of these, by the way, are like absolutely decked out. Like they got gold, like embroidery on them and everything. And then let me see here. Oh yeah, then he's got this one, which is the red and gold one. And then he's got this one, which is the solid gold one. And this guy is the guy telling everyone that they're out of money and stop praying for money. It's like, hell, I know why. I mean, y'all are wasting all the money on these outfits.
Yeah, I feel like this is the type of fella here to say something like, I don't know, they made that plane so cheap for me, I couldn't help but buy it. I had to. I couldn't get on a tube full of demons. I feel like this is the same type of fella right here. Nothing says humble quite like gold adorning everything.
You know, this guy right here, man, he would be the guy who'd sit there and say something like, listen, I have 20 chandeliers. I mean, like, I have 20 chandeliers in my house. I had to have 20 chandeliers. Or better yet, he'd be the guy saying, if Jesus was alive today, he wouldn't be riding on no donkey. Because like,
now, of course, he'd be riding in a Rolls Royce, of course, because that was apparently what Jesus was all about, was riding in the top-notch vehicles. It's like, do they not understand? The whole point was the donkey. That was the point. It was humble. That was the point. He's not going to be riding in a Rolls Royce. Newsflash here.
And I mean, look at this. This guy's got a green outfit going on. I mean, this guy's got literally 19 outfits. I don't even think the Pope in the Vatican has this many. And I mean, they are historically like literally the epicenter. If they had if any religious Christian group would have an endless amount of outfits for the Pope and everyone else, it would be the Catholic Church because they've existed the longest. But this church, I believe, happened in the Great Schism about 1400 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And this guy's got like 20 outfits. Like 20 of them. Like, no wonder the money's disappearing. It's this kind of stuff right here, and the Russian army does the same thing. But generally, I would have to say, folks, the Russian government is just going to let the citizens suffer because they've made it clear they're going to keep the thing going no matter what. And they don't really care. That's why that guy's saying, all the money, stop praying for money. Because, you know, the Russian government has told him the word, stop telling everyone to pray for money. It's not coming around and they better get used to it. And if they don't like that, we'll do something to them. And they will generally just let the whole public suffer and not really do much of anything about it. In the meantime, though, folks, Patriarch Kirill, and his 19 different outfits, has decided today that it would be best to show off the Russian public a demonstration of their youths. I can't even make this up, folks. They had a child soldier armed demonstration in an Orthodox church in Russia, which is actually
church.
it's actually even faced huge backlash in Russia. And the Russian government and the Russian Orthodox Church reviewed this and said, we see nothing wrong with this at all.
Holy cow, man! In the church, like that's crazy.
This is the absolute insanity, folks. I kind of got to point this stuff out because I kind of have to make it clear, folks, that when we talk about the Russian Orthodox Church, I don't really consider that to even be a slight on religion of anyone's type, because I don't really consider the Russian Orthodox Church to be an actual Christian church, because it is a literal extension of the Russian government, and due to its heavy connections with the Russian Federation's government, it is more so a propaganda apparatus than a religious institution like you would see here in the West. But nevertheless, here is the video. I'm going to let y'all hear a little bit of it, but there's music playing in it, so it's very, like, mired, though. You can't really tell what the song even is, but I'll play this for a second and let y'all see the clown show that's going on here. Oh, look, flagging the whole crowd and the cameraman. These kids are growing up smart in Russia.
Also, you might want to go ahead and mute that, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, this is just absolute insanity. Oh, look, flagging the crowd again. I just don't even get Russia at all. Like, I would get if this was done at, say, like a cadet school or a cadet program in, like, a public school in Russia. That would make sense to a degree. But doing this in a church? Isn't that a little bit odd? Like, I think everyone can agree this is pretty odd. I mean, if we saw this in the Middle East, we would assume that these guys are like a part of Al-Qaeda or ISIS or something like that.
Also, by the way, what's the objective here? Are they trying to recruit, or are they just trying to like show off for people?
Apparently, they're just showing off that they're basically turning the kids into child soldiers, basically. So this is kind of like the, what was it called? I can't even say the name, but it's kind of like that group in Germany at the very end of the war where they got the kids to fight for the German government. It's kind of like that, basically.
I guess they show up to Sunday school here and they learn how to disassemble the AK, I guess. That doesn't seem very church appropriate, but oh, look, he's doing a little air boxing and stuff. That totally helps. Yeah, in the front lines, you're boxing those drones like you're putting that Mike Tyson on that FPV. Like there's nothing like a kickboxing.
Yeah, there's nothing like coming to church and then seeing a whole bunch of child soldiers basically show off their martial arts skills and their rifle drills. Nothing like that, really.
Is it praise them and pass the ammo?
Man, they said, man, what is religion but an extension of the state? That's actually what Joseph Stalin said, actually, word for word, folks. That's why it's so heavily connected to the Russian government these days. And now this guy gets up in front of everyone. He's like, now we have to have everybody join the Russian army. This is a conscription. You all will be going into the vans and joining the Rossiyski army today. But moving on out of that clip and that absolute insanity, we also were able to see, moving us on deeper into Russia, near to the area of Gubaka, aka Gugu Gaga, that it appears that the factory was blown up in Gugu Gaga, and it was set on fire. This is apparently the Metafrax chemical plant in Gugu Gaga, and it was blown up in the Perm region of Russia. We believe that it was hit by a Ukrainian long-range drone attack, once again making this one of the longest-range drone attacks that we've seen so far in the conflict. Moving us on out of that, and also on towards Oriel, we also were able to hear that there is an ongoing drone attack happening at Oriel. We haven't got any confirmed damage yet, or any confirmed explosions within the area. And additionally, within the area of Belgrade, we have also been able to see that Belgrade has been hit again, and there is more fires breaking out in the city. And that's the end of that clip. And moving on from that and on into our next one, we also get to see that the city was under a missile attack again. You could clearly see the impacts in this clip. There's one off to the left right there.
Oh man, give them to the Belgrade.
They're going to ring their bell, Bliat. They're going to go ding, ding, ding.
Man. Ding, 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 ding. But anyways, moving on from that and out of Belgrade, it is time for us to move on down to Krasnodar. Next time in Krasnodar, and it ended up being true, because we were able to see that a refinery in the Ilsky area was hit and burning. Yippee!
The refinery is really Ilsky. It has a bit of a fever of 2,000 degrees.
So, the heating bill, so we just collected all of the city's heating in one spot and just set it on fire. Da, товарищ. Yes, very warm in one spot. Moving on out of that clip, we also saw that down in Taman, they apparently cooked it up down there Gary's way as well.
Oh, wow.
Oh, boy.
A big one.
I gotta tell you, the Russians, they just don't get an easy break these days at all. You just don't anywhere in Russia, you know? But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to finally move on and into Ukraine, because we are finally getting on into the internal news from the war in Ukraine. We didn't have a lot of it today, folks, because, of course, we had a million different pieces of news, different events from around the world to cover, so I had to make sure to get an even spread. So I did have to reduce our frontline footage a little bit, but generally it shows the bigger picture. Moving us into Kyiv first, however, we did get to hear that Zelensky yesterday did thank the United States for the sanctions on Lukoil and Rosneft, but asked that Europe and the United States does even more to once again further increase the demands on Russia to end the war through economic means. However, due to the statements that the president made in between that statement yesterday and today, where he stated that Zelensky needs to, I think it was like, nut up and shut up and make a deal or something along those lines, that apparently Zelensky today was very unhappy with that, and he just straight up said it was unfair. He stated that it was not fair that the president kept publicly calling on Ukraine, not Russia, to make concessions for peace. The president said twice in recent days that the onus was on Zelensky to make concessions, and I quote, "I hope that it is just his tactics and not the decision," according to Zelensky. So it does appear that Zelensky has gotten kind of a little bit tired of having the blame constantly thrown on him, considering that Ukraine is the only one out of the two countries that has made endless concessions to try and eventually get the negotiations somewhere where the Russians will agree to something, and yet the Russians keep making it clear they're not negotiating on anything, and they're just going to keep the war going until they eventually win, whether negotiations are attempted or not. We also saw that the Russians are trying to get a little bit more creative with attacking Ukraine. In this clip, we actually saw this Shahed, or a Garan, or some sort of a decoy, like Gebera, apparently carrying an FPV drone deep into Ukraine that it then launched off of its back in this clip. It's a fairly short clip, but I'll show you all the FPV. There it is. That's the FPV.
Also, they actually do have the motherships they were talking about. I thought they had like a custom drone built for it, though. I didn't know they were using like pre-existing designs to launch them.
Yeah, apparently they're pre-existing designs that are carried on a cradle on top of the Shahed, or the Garan, or the Gebara. We're not really sure which one it is. And then once it makes it to a certain point in Ukraine, they drop it off, and then it goes and targets something precisely within the area, which is a little bit interesting to see.
But how are they controlling it though? Because they may be able to take it the distance, but the problem is though the FPV is controlled through an entirely different system than the Gebura or the Shahed or whatever that mothership drone is. So how are they range extending to do that? Like, did they say how they're doing it? Because obviously now they're out of Starlink too. So I'm not sure how they're really communicating with them.
We really don't know, actually. Like, we really have no clue, to be entirely honest. We just know that the things apparently are working to some extent, because the Ukrainians have been talking about FPV drones popping up in the midst of drone attacks way behind the lines. So apparently they're operational from some extent, but we don't know how.
Interesting. I wonder if they're pre-programmed to like certain coordinates, because that wouldn't require a connection, and they might just go on possibly a pre-existing coordinates that have been programmed into it. That would be a little bit, I'm not sure if that's something that Russia would be able to pull off or not, but I see some people saying they've got 5G and like 4G connections. I had heard about that because I've heard they're trying to use like aerostats or like stationary balloons in the atmosphere to broadcast 5G, but that is not super reliable as far as we've heard. So we're not totally sure. But yeah, I'll be fascinated to know if this was pre the Starlink cutoff or was this after the Starlink cutoff. I'd be curious to know.
Yeah, I'll be curious to know that as well. Moving on out of the northern area of Ukraine and on into our location unknowns, we also got the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours. And holy smokes, look at that. The Russian losses, according to Misty, Keeper of the Records from the 17th of February on day 1,455, are as follows. Low numbers, especially artillery and vehicles. However, averages are the same as the prior month. Troops and drone losses averages are close to the same amounts as well. And over the past 24 hours, we were able to confirm that 890 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 3 APCs, 71 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 4 artillery pieces, and 614 drones, along with 2 cruise missiles. Generally, not that bad of a day, and it does appear that the Ukrainians are still holding their ground and fighting tooth and nail as much as they possibly can. Moving us all the way down and into the area around New York. We also saw that the Russians are desperately trying to keep comms lines open. They are trying to set up any form of internet connectivity they can. And we can see them here with a spool of wire, and they're basically having to lay telegraph lines at this point to try and keep the internet up.
I could see a little weakness with this system right here. One splice, and it's finished.
And also, one drone blast onto that tower in a key part of the system is also gone as well.
Yeah, and also it's going to take out the entire rest of the line, because unless they have like redundant cables like hooked into one another, like on the same tower, it's going to take out the entire thing all the way up the front line.
Man, what's even funnier is that a Russian general today in Moscow said, actually, we were never using the Starlink system. We were simply saying that just to throw off the wicked West. We never wanted to use such wicked Western systems of devilry and Satanism and all that crap. They were saying that in Moscow today. And it's like, I doubt that, because they lost 200 square kilometers of ground after they lost the system and also a Telegram and WhatsApp. So it's like, I'm doubting that claim. Me personally, but who knows? Maybe they were really letting us on. What do y'all think? I'm sure many of y'all would believe the Russians, right? I mean, they've given us no reasons to distrust them at all. The Russians are very trusty, especially their government. But anyways, moving on from that, which is clearly showing us the Russians are going to have incredibly vulnerable communication systems for the remainder of the war. We also were able to see that within Pokrovsk, the Ukrainian Leopard 4 from the 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade was really giving the Russians that old 1-2. Bam! And blowing the walls out of this house.
They're really giving it to them. Look at them.
Man,
blowing them away.
Oh boy, yeah. Oh, look, a little smoldering the fat on the bun on the barrel of gun. Oh, now to roll away. Beautiful leopard. Look at it.
They're getting cinematic with it. They're taking roller shots of the wheels moving and everything. They're really going through this pretty good.
Man, they love to be cinematic. We also were able to hear that an S300 SV, I believe, yeah, it actually was an S300 VM, correction there, was actually lost near to the Mariupol area by a long-range drone. This is a fairly expensive air defense system, hundreds of millions within the entirety of the battery, and the Russians did lose one today. What a shame. Tushim.
Ah, look.
Oh, boy.
There he is. Look, expensive little fella.
This
Bam,
one,
go ahead and hit him right there. That's a lot of money down the drain. Do you think you hear like the Mario gold coins going ding, ding, ding? It's a Mario after they hit it.
Wasn't that Sonic? Oh, wait, no, it was Mario with the gold coins, and it was Sonic with the gold rings. Man, when I was thinking though when you said that, I was like, man, I think if these things get hit, it's more like Sonic busting his ass and having all the gold rings like pop out. The sound that we got, as he like fell around.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like that instead, at least in my opinion. But with that in mind, folks, we do have to move us on up, and I can't believe, Matthew, this is actually a little bit ahead of time that we were able to achieve this one. It is time for us to move on up and into Kyiv to cover the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Let me check something really quickly, folks, because I want to see if this will work here. Let me see something here on my side screen before we go to this speech, because this speech I had to get from YouTube. Earlier, the president of Ukraine's website said that I wasn't trustworthy, and I was very suspicious, and I had to do a whole bunch of captures, and then they never ended. I did like 50 of them, and then I gave up. And it actually is now working. I don't know why they said I was suspicious earlier. It's not like I'm with the CIA or anything like that.
That's like the same thing it said over. You remember we were having a problem a while back. You couldn't log into the Twitter account because of the same reason.
Man, apparently I'm just a suspicious guy. And I was like, I'm not with the CIA or anything. It's not like I get bankrolled by them or something. I mean, that's ridiculous. We do all above board, through alternate accounts and stuff. But beyond, I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm just playing. We do not work with the CIA. But beyond that, also, by the way, Matthew, it happened during the YouTube outage. By the way, that's when it happened. It was like, oh, you're really suspicious.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
when
probably
that
got you.
Yeah, that was what was happening, because I was accessing an external link in the middle of their outage. And they're like, you're a weirdo. That's what was happening with Twitter.
Yeah,
at the same
that's right,
time.
I forgot they have like DDoS protection on their site for Ukraine. So I think the provider, I'm not going to mention the provider because I don't know for a fact that it was them that was out, but I think the DDoS protection provider was actually having an issue too.
Yeah, I would say so. And also, before anyone says, "Hey, you're CIA," no, I'm not CIA because I don't go around on podcasts talking like this, and then they talk about putting hummus up your egg.
Man, we're Twitter randos. What's a Twitter rando do want to know with anything?
Yeah, what do we want to know? We're just two silly little guys to do the news. But moving on from that, it is time for us to get on to the speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Bitch!
Шановні українці, українки, передусім про масований удар, яким росіяни цей день почали. 29 ракет різних типів було, і 25 вдалося збити. Це важливий результат нашої протиповітряної оборони. І ще раз підкреслюємо, що ППО – це щоденна потреба. Дякую всім нашим партнерам, які це розуміють. Навіть день старту чергових форматів у Женеві, тристоронніх, двосторонніх з Америкою, Росія зустрічає ударом. Це дуже чітко демонструє, чого Росія хоче і на що вони налаштовані. Було ще майже 400 дронів, загроза ударів не зникає, холодна погода сама по собі приваблює Росію, і вони і далі будуть намагатись поставити зиму на службу війні. Тому треба бути і надалі дуже уважними усім нашим воїнам, які захищають небо. Дякую, хлопці, за влучність. Також треба бути максимально активними усім українським дипломатам, які повинні забезпечувати результат у постачанні ракет для ППО. Також міністру оборони. Щойно була нарада у нас з міністром Федоровим. Ми визначили пріоритети і треба, щоб постачання працювало. Буде цими тижнями також значна кількість форматів з нашими партнерами, різні перемовини, різні зустрічі. Ми будемо говорити і про те, що Європа потребує свого виробництва ракет для ППО. Усіх типів ракет, які реально потрібні. Зараз вже є певні кроки, розбудова виробництв, розширення, але швидкість цієї роботи ще недостатня. Обсяги можливого виробництва теж заслуговують на збільшення. Україна ще роки тому говорила про це з Америкою, зокрема про необхідність створити в Європі достатні виробництва ракет, зокрема для патріотів. Були обіцянки ліцензії, але Америка на це зрештою не пішла. Хоча ми пропонували виробництво і в Україні, і спільно з партнерами по НАТО в регіоні, з Румунією, з Польщею тощо. Такі рішення, такі виробництва точно змогли би посилити всіх нас, всю Європу. Я впевнений, Європа все ж зможе забезпечити себе необхідними обсягами та силою захисту. Але було би значно краще для всіх, щоб такий результат був досягнутий швидше. Весь день сьогодні в Одесі тривають роботи після нічних ударів. Були значні знеструмлення в Одесі і також в населених пунктах Одеського регіону. Люди залишились також без тепла і води. На жаль, на цей час відновлення ще не відбулось, роботи триватимуть. Я доручив надати Одесі всю необхідну підтримку, прискорити відновлення. Буде ще сьогодні доповідь делегації після першого раунду перемовин в Женеві. Хлопці точно мають поставити питання щодо цих ударів, питання передусім американській стороні, яка і нам, і Росії пропонувала утриматись від ударів. Україна готова. Нам війна не потрібна. І ми діємо завжди дзеркально. Ми захищаємо свою державу, свою незалежність. Так само ми готові швидко рухатись до достойної угоди про завершення війни. Питання лише до росіян, чого вони хочуть. І також, чи будуть наслідки для Росії за те, що шахеди, ракети та фентезійні балачки на історичну тематику для них мають більше значення, ніж реальна дипломатія. Дипломатія і тривалий мир. Ще одне, усіх цих російських ракетах та дронах, які були застосовані сьогодні, тисячі компонентів, які Росія сама не виробляє. 5 «Іскандерів М» – це щонайменше 75 критичних компонентів неросійського виробництва. 3 ракети Х-101 – це майже 160 компонентів, які Росія не може сама замінити. Кожен шахет – це сотні таких компонентів, які завозяться в Росію з інших країн, і не тільки від китайських компаній, до речі. Ще Європа, Америка, Японія – це не тільки для нас в Україні, але й загалом. Для глобальної безпеки важливо, щоб партнери реально блокували ланцюжки постачання в Росію критичних компонентів для виробництва зброї. І також, щоб самі компанії краще слідкували, куди потрапляють їхні компоненти. Росія без таких зв'язків зі світом нічого не може. Вони не здатні бути сильними в повній ізоляції. Саме тому блокування і тиск справді можуть спонукати агресора до зміни політики. Але це залежить від рішучості світу. Я дякую всім, хто діє сильно, щоб агресор втрачав можливості затягувати цю війну. Я дякую всім, хто допомагає нам, хто допомагає Україні. Слава Україні!
Herom Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky, here on day 1455 of the news from around the world. And I've got to say, Matthew, that I just got a call from John, a.k.a., you know, the call sign, the Cliff of Rats. He actually just told me that we got to stop kidding around or else we'll be sent to a black site for reprogramming. So I'm sorry about that, everyone. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you knew we were going to get sent to a gulag?
No, Matthew, it's a black site. Totally different.
It could be a gulag.
But if they send you to Gitmo, they start shoving hummus up.
You see, what they did is they put him in a stress position, and it turned out that he couldn't rest. He couldn't take it easy, and every 1 hour he would have cold water put on him.
Man, you got to do like the low voice thing that they do in the media. You got to be like, and they put him in the stress position, and then his heart would explode or something.
Oh man, that's so funny.
Oh man, it's so funny. Oh dang, man, you know, like those stories about Pakistan, and then that guy, after doing all this stuff, then he says that the Iranians can actually blow up all of our carriers. Oh my heavens, jeez Louise, these people these days, I tell you, the people that they get to work for the CIA, I say, sometimes I wonder, sometimes I really wonder, folks. But anyways, with that, everyone, we do have to stop kidding around. Otherwise, we will be reprogrammed, and I don't want to. I want to be me.
Actually,
like
actually, I'm not done goofing around. By the way,
oh,
it's time. It's time for 2 memes. I have allotted us a moment of silence for, well, not silence, but a moment of looking for 2 memes right here. The memes are alive. They're not dead, so there will not be a moment of silence. There will be a moment of observation. So go to the likes tab real quick. I've picked 2 fresh ones out that are relevant to our situation today. First of all, show the one of the Pentagon Pizza Watch. Show this one first. I want to let the people see this right here. The caption says, POV, you're about to find out why the Pentagon's pizza budget is higher than your country's GDP. And as you can see here, this is Willem the Ayatollah right here looking up at the sky. As you can tell, that's a pretty good fake.
that is a pretty good one. I got to say, Willem Dafoe as Ali Khamenei, that's an interesting casting choice, but I can't really disagree with it.
Also, by the way, I have one more meme to show you. You might have noticed earlier there was a slight YouTube outage, by the way. We have found the repairman. He has now showed up. Not only is he the Bolivar, not only is he the Secretary of State, not only is he the future leader of NATO and possibly leader of China, he is now the YouTube repairman. So, as you see here, of course, when you repair servers, you need a tool belt like you're working construction on new homes, because that's what's required, of course. Honestly, this right here, this guy looks like he's got to get up on to like be like possibly an agent going in to plant some stuff on his system, possibly. He's kind of got that look about him. But this guy right here, look at him go. He's got like, what's this, the 12th job, 15th job? This guy's, he doesn't get tired.
I'm not going to lie, man. Blood looked like Fix-It Felix from Wreck-It Ralph.
It kind of does, honestly.
Bro, it's like a perfect fit. Bro, it's like, I think they picked out that whole thing from that dude because he's got on like the same light blue shirt and the dark blue pants and the little toolkit belt deal. He's like the whole same thing. But beyond that, though, I had to say, Matthew, I think that YouTube's in good hands because of the Bolivar of Venezuela, the Emperor of Cuba, the Dominator of lands, the oceans and the seas, the ruler of the galaxies and stars above, and the fish in the sea, and the animals and creatures of the lands and the heavens above, is truly working on the YouTube service. I think we are in absolutely tremendous hands.
Man, I wish I could get that song playing. Remember that song for the Dos Equis, like alcohol commercials? It'd go ding, 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 ding. He's the most interesting man in the world. It's like, I need that right now so bad, but we can't play it because that damn copyright. I can't stand it, that damn copyright. It prevents so many jokes from taking place. But I tell you what, we can at least imitate the song. You know what I'm saying, man? The little ding, 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 ding.
Bro, dude, the president's ongoing lore. I'm not on the island. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio's subplot on the side is him literally conquering like the galaxy. It's like, bro, it's like this. Like, honestly, at the end of this presidential term, I think the most interesting side. Well, it's not even the most interesting side thing. It's the most interesting story of them all. Is the story of this guy because he's like currently holding, I think, like 4 government positions. He's like the heads of 4 different government departments still, and then he's also done a whole bunch of other stuff on the side. It's like, I think that's probably like, I think if there's anything to remember this time in the next 3 years out of, I think it's just this one guy and how much they put this guy through the ringer, basically running him ragged, doing everything.
Yeah, I don't think it was supposed to be like that ever. But I mean, technically, he's one of the most important people in government right now because he holds those positions like that. But I really doubt, though. Like, I may be, stealing a little bit of his credit, possibly, but I doubt that he has the time to properly manage each and every one of those agencies that he's put in charge of because each one requires a pretty good bit of time. Like, you have to devote your time to it. 2, maybe you could possibly manage, but I mean, 3 or 4, I mean, there's no way those are being managed like that. So they're probably just delegating it to, I was about to say underbosses, but we're not talking about the mafia. But maybe the underlings that are like right under, like the deputy directors. They're probably delegating it to them. Because I doubt he's actually having time to do all that.
Yeah, I would say so. But we'll have to. Also, someone said, does the actually it's Little Marco, correction, get paid extra for those different hats? I don't think so. From what I know, I don't think he does. So he's doing like man, he lives the life of all of us. Like, if there's anyone who really understands the common American at this point, it's going to be this guy because he gets paid to do one job, but he's basically doing 3 or 4 people's jobs. Really got to respect him for that. Basically, like everyone else in America, you basically make like the salary of one well-paying job like 40 years ago, but you got to work like 3 part-time jobs to get there a day. Really something right there. But anyways, enough of.
And I'll tell you what, he might be able to replace that bad rabbit at the Super Bowl. He might be able to do that too. He can take on a different job. He can take on the singing role. Maybe he's a singing man, Kathleen. Maybe he's a singing man. He got there and sing that little VIP.
Hold up, man. You gotta do it right. They say I have many girlfriends. Oh, hold up. Auntie asked me why I have many girlfriends. I take him to the VIP. Like, bro, it's like.
Honestly, I didn't really listen to that until yesterday. I heard the song. I heard the non-translated version and the translated version. And I was thinking, like, no offense, by the way, if you like the guy, like, he's obviously popular, so he has credibility behind him. But I was thinking, like, is this guy really the most popular like artist on the planet? It's like, this really doesn't sound that good to me, just from my personal perspective. That's just me. Maybe I'm different. Maybe I have a different taste, but I didn't find it very good. And also the lyrics were kind of garbo for the song, and I just didn't like it.
I'll be honest with y'all. I gotta be honest with y'all. I had to indulge. I watched a halftime show, the whole thing, and I also watched the Turning Point USA one that they put on as well. And I gotta be honest with y'all, both of them were pretty bad. Like they were like, you go from they say I have many girlfriends to I just wanna kiss my fish, drive my truck, drink my beer. It's like, who's stopping you? It's like who's else stopping you from kissing your fish? I mean, like, a little weird, but it is
Just
American.
a whole bunch of political picks. Like, they're picking people for political reasons instead of picking people that are actually talented. It's like, just because, like, here's the thing: just because someone's popular doesn't necessarily mean they're talented. They could just be charismatic. I mean, that's a possibility as well. Like, it seemed like the fella might be charismatic, and that might be why he's popular, because his music's not really that good. And at least to me, it wasn't. I'm sure it's popular with some folks. They're probably, oh, that's really great. But I'm not sure if this has ever really been considered that great from a musical standpoint, but that's just my opinion, though. I'm sure someone's about to say, well, you're not everybody, and you're right, I'm not.
I just have to say, folks, I mean, I just be kind of straight up. I mean, it definitely did appeal to some crowd because the ratings were pretty good from what we know. It's like on up there as one of the largest watched halftime shows that the Super Bowl has ever had. But at the same time, though, it wasn't really that good. And I mean, everyone that I talked to, like the best opinion I've heard of it was kind of okay, but it could have been a lot better. Like, that's literally the best opinion I've heard of it so far. And generally outside of that, I also got to say that the Turning Point USA one was like pretty bad. Like, I mean, there was like, I didn't even get it. Like, I watched it, I was like, this seems about as bad as the halftime show, or even worse. Like, it's in the similar category there. So I just like to make a public appeal, much like we try and not get on to politics here on this channel, which we do our damnedest not to. I would really wish that the public would just stop making everything political, and also the people who run this stuff in every way would stop making everything political, to where we could just have, like, an enjoyable experience. Because, like, truth be told, folks, there was I think Bad Bunny right now is number 13 in the top 100 artists on, like, the Billboard Top 100. There were 12 other people above him that they could have gotten for the Super Bowl, and I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, Morgan Wallen, who is a country singer, I think he was number 1 on the top 100 for artists last time I checked. And it's like, you could have gotten him, or you could have gotten any of the other 11 or 12 performers, and maybe that would have been more appealing, to a larger crowd. Who knows? But they do what they do. So a little bit interesting in its own right. But also, someone else asked, wait a minute, did he really say kiss his fish? I think it was like catch his fish or something like that in the song. But the way it came out, it almost sounded, I just want to kiss my fish. I was like, oh, kind of weird. And then I heard later that apparently it was catch my fish or something like that. And like what I was thinking when I was listening to that song, because the whole preface into it was, I just wish that America would go back to the way it should be, the right way, and all that stuff. And then he started the song, and I was like, well, no one's stopping you from doing any of this stuff, like mowing your lawn. And I also got to say, folks, modern critique of country music. Modern country music, maybe this is a hot take to some. Modern country music just absolutely sucks. It's basically just shoplifting everything you can that you think is kind of country. So every song is like this: barrel, barrel, ride my boat, go to town, ride my ATV through the mud, get a Ford.
It really is.
Raptor. It's just that.
It's like commercialized slop is what it is. It's like country music sponsored by BlackRock or something like that. It's like, I'm like, this isn't even authentic. Like the people singing country these days are like manufactured into like so-called like country people. It's like they're not even really country. It's like it's just bad. Like honestly, a lot of music today is commercialized. Like not much of it is actually any good, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what's funny to me is that the country singers be like, it's time for me to go back to the real country, God's country, and then they fly back to like Nashville or something. It's like they're in the middle of the city. It's like, this guy is not country. He's not from the country. It's like a city slicker. It's like he's a city slicker that wears boots, and he kind of dresses a little country, and he goes around with his little guitar, and he pretends like he's country, but he flies in a private jet. He lives in a 15,000 square foot mansion in the suburbs. It's like, this guy's not country by any measure. I'll be honest with you, I like country, but I don't like modern country, and I mean modern country as anything made past about 1986. Everything before that was actually pretty good, because usually it was like telling a story, or it was like relating to people's struggles, or things that people disliked, like their bosses or something like that, or just some sort of a crazy story that they told that was put to song. And it was really good, and I was always like, wow, this is like really interesting, like storytelling through song. It took a lot from like the ballad style songs from before and turned it into something else. But nowadays, like all modern music, it's all made to basically just try and sell records. And it's never really made with any soul or any passion. And it feels like they have like a whole board that they put together, not just for country, but every song group, where they're like, okay, we need to appeal to large demographics. So what do we need to do with country songs? Oh, well, we can't say anything about hating bosses of companies that work you to death, because that might piss off some people. So let's make it about Ford Raptors and pontoon boats on the lake, and beers and coolers. Yeah, and maybe smoking and drinking on the pontoon. Oh, genius. Maybe about how a tractor is hot, so that way we can try and market tractors. And it's like, what the hell are they doing? And it's like that in every song category too. It's rough. But anyways,
Also, by the way, to round out this segment before we get to our super chats, let me show you 3 more versions, or 3 more possible job choices that Marco has to choose from. Let's show you this real quick. It's under the likes tab. Let's take a quick look at this.
Let me get the likes tab up here real quick. What the hell is this one?
So this is Marco's apparently had enough jobs here. He's trying to hide behind the couch, or he's trying to pull advance on the couch, one or the other. You never can tell these days. But that's when he gets sick and tired of taking on too many jobs right there. He's a little bit sick of it.
Huh. What about the... Oh, look at that. Like, what the hell?
There he is taking the new reins as the leader of Venezuela, of Iran. Actually, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Maybe Venezuela too. Maybe it's going to turn into the Islamic Republic of Venezuela, possibly.
Inshallah, I shall guide the Venezuelan people well. It's like, I don't know about that one. What the hell is this?
Also, by the way, he's going to replace all the Olympic skiers and stuff at the Olympics. Apparently, he's going to go and have a good time.
Man, honestly, his face looks really messed up in this one. I think they AI'd it a little too hard. But let's see. Oh yeah, and then we're back down to the other ones. I mean, not a bad job pick. Not bad job picks for him. He's got a great career ahead of him. A lot of opportunities.
Man, a lot of opportunities here. I'll tell you what, too many opportunities. The sky is the limit. Can they share a job or two with the folks? Like, we need some jobs out here. Like, can they share a few jobs around with the people? I mean, Marco can get 7 of the top-notch jobs, and we don't get none.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. A job opens up in the government, and they give it to Rubio. Oh, man, I'm telling you, how many jobs can this guy take? Oh, man, I'm telling you, it's crazy around here. They sat there and said that it was a hard economy. Oh, man, it must be. A Latino's got to take 4 jobs to make a living. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, and I've got to have 5. Oh, man, it's a real rough life out here. A rough one. But anyways, it is time for us to finally get on into some questions. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping back into our Super Chat questions, our first one is going to go to none other than Duncan VR, who puts in a $30 support all the way from Australia. And thank you very much from our Aussie viewer, Down Under, for that support. I don't even know why they call it Down Under. I just thought about that. I'm like, Down Under. I'm like, well, I'm not sure what that means exactly. If you say Down Under, does that mean you're a flat earther?
No, it means you're an Australian.
Well, I mean, possibly, but I mean, what do they mean by down under? Down under what?
Did you come from the land down under? Because, Australia is upside down, it's on the bottom side of the world, so it's down under.
Possibly so, but it's more like a sphere, so it's more like down over.
But if you look at the sphere, Matthew, oriented towards the North Pole, then Australia truly is the land down under because it's under the equator and it's generally facing downwards, south, away from the United Kingdom, and that's why it's the land down under.
Possibly so, but whatever the case
Why do you
is,
keep
we
saying
do appreciate
possibly?
you, Duncan.
Man, you're like possibly so. Like you said that 5 times. I was like, man.
I'm going to withhold judgment on this one here until I can research this some extra. But nonetheless, Duncan, we do appreciate you very much for that support, wherever you come from, down under, down over, or down around. Duncan said, "Baba mu wolf quack." Inshallah, the marmot is talking to Matt. Zelensky, let's break out the Mama, inshallah. No respect around here, Baba Wolf. Oh, hello there, Mama.
You want to see the marmots? I can show you a marmot or two. And I have to thank you massively for the generous support, Duncan VR. Because folks like you help us to keep the shadow running and have an Alan the Marmot segment. Oh, hello there. Hey!
Oh, hello there, Governor. I was about to choke on that mint. I was chewing on Altoid mint, and I was trying to get fresh breath. And it turned out I almost died on that. I almost choked it down. You know when you chomp into a little bit of a Mentos mint, and you start to get a little bit choked up by it because it turns out to go down the wrong pipe. It goes down the wrong pipe, the wind one, and it should go down the other one. It almost didn't. But hello there, good sir. Oh, hello there, Marmot. Good to see you, good sir. What's going on out there? Spit up some blood. Make your fur, good fur and all that. I don't have nothing to say here. It's like a bit of flounder. It's like a fish, but tell us more, eh?
Aw, man. I gotta be straight up with y'all. I can't believe I'm not in jail yet. Aw, man. But beyond that, though, selling glizzies has never been better. People be lining up for the meat. Aw, man.
Oh, yeah? If you go to jail, you'll be lining up for meat, too. Or actually, be lining you up for meat.
Aw, man, I might not even complain, though, on God.
Oh, dear. Well, I mean, that was a twist and turn. Wasn't expecting that. That's interesting.
Well, didn't you see me going on those long romps in the woods? Didn't you see?
Oh, dear. I thought he was just going out there to enjoy the nature. I didn't know there's a second ulterior motive behind it. He's going out there to go do some romping, it turns out. Nobody knew what the definition of romping was until we heard it from him.
Oh man, they don't call me the meat packing plant for nothing. Oh man. Oh man. But anyways, yeah, that I hope that does allow y'all to have a little bit of an Owl in the Marmot segment. It's always a fun one, you know, around here's always a fun one. We love the Marmot segment. And I gotta thank you all massively once again for support, especially you, Duncan VR, for allowing us to have a little Owl in the Marmot segment. And I hope that it's I hope that was a good one. I hope that it was a solid one, and one that really got the folks rolling over in laughter. So a big thanks to you humongously once again. And actually, folks, I have to tell y'all that marmots are nearby. Let me go pull up a Utah marmot. Utah marmot. Not a Utah.
Oh my God, man, the window's, oh my God, man, the window's actually breaking.
It'll be okay. It will be okay.
Holy cow. No, man, it's actually breaking. Like, I just heard the little fastener come loose. Also, by the way, people, the wind is gusting 60 miles an hour out here right now in Salt Lake City because there's a wind advisory. It's like a winter storm moving in. The window literally just unfastened from top part right there. If this thing flips in and busts on my head in a minute, this window over here, hey, yo, pause for a minute. Pause.
Hey, yo.
The window
like that just clicked. Hey, yo.
If the window, let's rephrase that. If the window
comes in and busts on you, hey, yo.
No, not like that. Not like that. We're trying to be transparent here more than the window. If the window cracks and falls in and smashes on my head, whatever. If it does that shit, okay, I'm in deep trouble. Okay, you might hear me yell.
Oh man, if that window comes down on him, it's gonna like I'm not even gonna add to that. That was enough as it was. But beyond that though,
there's no proper way to say that. There's literally no saving that.
No, there's no saving that. Like the window is going to unfasten itself from its hinges, and it may fall forward onto Matthew. There we go. There's a very clinical way to describe that without anyone having to go, "Hey, yo!" Like, but anyways, beyond that though, here's this little marmot. This is a marmot photographed in Utah. Look at that cute creature.
That is something else. Why's it on that rock like that?
I love the rock. Like,
it's a little goofy, but that's okay.
Man, honestly, man, that's how I'd be laying in my bed sometimes at night, man, like on my stomach with my like arms spread forward like that. Like that sometimes, folks, is a comfortable way to sleep. Because funnily enough, folks, y'all might not know this, but I actually have double major scoliosis, and I've never felt my back hurt until about a year ago, and every once in a while it hurts just a tiny bit. And so laying on my belly like that actually helps out. So I relate to that, Marmon. It must have scoliosis as well. But here's another one in Utah. Look at these precious creatures, these rodents.
I like these rodents here.
They are absolutely sublime rodents. I mean, look at them. They're truly the best of the rodentia family. I mean, the best out there.
They're like giant squirrels.
Man, this way, I'll bite you. I'll bite you very quick, Governor. Like, it's like, man.
I'll trade you my my crumpets for some tea, yeah? And you're not getting a choice in the matter. You'll do it because you're told.
This one shows up and it goes, "All right, everyone, school's out." Man, it's like, all right, run me live.
All right, everybody, the clinic's in session, and we're going to learn some lessons today, hard lessons.
We're going to the school of hard knocks, kids, and everyone's going to learn something today. It looks like this is a shiv. I mean, this one looks like it would invite you over to hang out with it and chit-chat for a minute. This one looks like it runs a podcast, actually.
It kind of does. It's getting ready to say a word or two.
Do you like whippets?
Oh, what?
Do you like whippets, Governor? Like,
don't go into that anymore.
I've heard that there's a common thing in the kingdom, or the United Kingdoms. And then this one's quite chunky, really. I mean, you know, it's rotund, really. Oh, look at these. They're hanging out on the rocks. They almost blend in with them. And then we have this one.
The rocks blending in like they're wearing their ghillie suit, eh?
Man, look at this one. This was like, "Don't film me going into my domicile, you bastard." It's like, don't film me.
You don't have permission to film me in public, Governor. Do you have a license?
I'm gonna call the what the hell do they call them? Not the
The
police.
broadcast license.
No, it's not. It's not that. It's the other name that they have. I'm gonna call the Bobby on you if you don't stop filming me. How dare you? What kind of indecency do you have, sir, to film people in public like this? Heavens, I'm gonna have to call the council on you. Do you even have approval for that window? Does that window open all the way where someone can fall out of it? Heavens, I have to call the council on that on you, bastard. Good day. Like it's a. Oh man, I don't know why all of our marmots are British. I have no clue, but that's been a running thing forever. Oh, look at that. Little marmot
Look at
pups.
it. It's two of them, right? They're sitting on the rocks, learning the ways of the young pups. Look at them. Look
Hello,
at them.
Governor.
They're learning the ways. Hello there, Governor.
Hello, Governor. We're forming a youth gang. We're going to go around the mountains of Lone Peak and help people up with sheaves for all their money.
They're going to go stomp on the rival gangs, Governor.
We're gonna pull up on Bear Canyon and absolutely whip some ass. It's like, yeah, but I respect the youth gang marmots. Really respectable trade. Let's see, any others? Oh, there's these two.
Look at them.
Hardship early in life can affect health and longevity, even for marmots. Man, those marmots be working those long 12-hour shifts in the coal mines. I really do respect them. But anyways, enough of the Utah marmots. Because we finally moved, folks, to the land of the marmots. We actually do have the legitimate marmots out here in Utah that we always joke about, like with Alan the Marmot and stuff. But with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. But a humongous thanks to you so much for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, Duncan VR, and letting us have a funny little segment there for a couple of funny little dudes like ourselves. And so with that, it's time for us to move on and into the next one.
All right, and our second super chat here goes to Chef Danny B, who puts in a $40 support, and thank you very much, Danny, for that support. We do appreciate that very, very much. And he said, "Good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here, and I missed the Sunday night fundraiser. I was up at the casinos, and I had some family in from Texas, so we went up for a while. And happy belated birthday to you, Enforcer, and LLT and long live the LSA."
Hey, and a big thanks to you for the happy birthday wishes, Chef Danny B. And that is really cool to hear that y'all got to go out and have a bit of fun. And I hope that y'all did have a blast that Sunday. And I'd say that considering that you missed a Sunday night fundraiser to hang out with family, that's A-okay by me. That's a great reason to miss it for. And I also got to say that that's quite interesting. Family from Texas. So y'all live kind of like in the central area of the United States, the geographical central part, at least east to west, that is. That's really cool. And I gotta say, humongous thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Chef Danny B. And a big thanks to you once again for those incredibly wonderful happy birthday wishes. And long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to De Los Solon. And thank you very much for that $21 support. We do appreciate that very much as well.
Hey!
And they said if Iran hits an aircraft carrier, they will have their own live red alert.
I think so. I'd agree with you completely on that. I think if they hit a carrier, things are going to go poorly for them. Things are only going to get worse. I guarantee you that one. But a humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that this addressed it incredibly well, but I'd certainly agree with you. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Aurora983. And thank you very much, Aurora, for that support as well. And they said Enforcers YouTube server RAM upgrade fund or just reboot it to get it to work. LSA.
We kicked it a little and it ended up working. I usually with machines, what you have to do is kick them around a little and then they start working. Or you can kick them and then they just completely break. I mean, it's one or the other. But a big thanks to you so much for the support. And luckily, we were able to get the whole system back online for this show to start. You know, at YouTube HQ, they said, "Hurry! We gotta get back online! The Enforcers go live in 2 hours!" And they were like working through it quickly. Because it pretty much went back up to normal like 40 minutes before we went live, which was very fortunate for us indeed. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that this addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Meanwhile, on YouTube, while the outage was taking place, look, it's down. It's like, geez, man, this guy's broadcasting through the YouTube outage. That's crazy work. But anyways, jumping into our next one here, this one goes to TagVary, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, TagVary, for that support as well. We appreciate that. And they said, LSA,
and LSA, and a big thanks to you, Tech Variant, for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And I gotta say that thanks to folks like you and your incredible support, the Leaf Spring Army will continue to live long and never truly die. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And of course, a huge thanks to you once again for being a part of this amazing Leaf Spring Army. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 support from Alfred's mom, and thank you very much, Alfred's mom, for that support. They said happy birthday to Enforcer Andrew and LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for the happy birthday wishes. I turned 24 this Sunday, and I gotta tell y'all folks, it feels even better to be 24 than 23. Everybody hates you when you're 23, but everybody loves you. They adore you when you're 24. It's an even number, folks. You can divide it by 6 4 times. That's something right there. That's something. You can't do that. You can divide it by 8, actually, 3 times. You know, that's a hell of a number right there. You could divide it by 12 2 times. Now, that's something right there. Mathematics. I can get those maths, but I can't get other kinds. It's just too tough for me. But beyond that, I do thank you incredibly once again for support and happy birthday wishes. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to none other than Eric Brown, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Eric, as well, for that support. He said, any possibility of the U.S. already having CIA or special ops on the ground inside of Iran, given that we have done false flag operations last year as an example, and could it be possible that they're moving in secretly with the Starlink terminals? Also, by the way, we've heard that apparently Starlink's terminals were smuggled in by the U.S. government apparently a while back. At least that's what the reports claimed. And I would say the possibility of having intelligence agents on the ground or potentially like sabotage agents is extremely high. Definitely Israeli agents on the ground, that's for certain at this point. We saw that during the 12-day war. It's also very possible that the CIA is on the ground, because otherwise, how do we get those Starlinks into the country? That would be a bit of a question mark. But Enforcer, what say you?
The CIA is always on the ground. That is why we have an amazing spy network, and I can't talk about it a lot, but I can tell you that it's an absolutely profound and wide-sweeping spy network, and that's why we have the hit list in the CIA. But I'm just kidding. I'm just impersonating someone else who says something kind of a little silly today. But outside of that, though, I would say that we definitely do have CIA operatives in the ground in Iran. We have CIA operatives in most every country around the world. As a matter of fact, at least people who are informants to the CIA or they're actual CIA ground operators in these countries. And considering that Iran is our largest and most significant threat within the region, we definitely have CIA inside of Iran, and they've probably been there ever since the fall of the Persian state, or the Kingdom of Persia, way back in 1979. So I would promise you we definitely have ground operatives there. But in the words of another guy, they can destroy our carriers by hitting them with missiles. But oh man, that cracks me up. Oh dude, I can't believe that someone would say something like that. You know, you would think that some people would think before they say things, you know, be like outlandish things like that, you know, Matthew, things that clearly are not true.
Yeah,
But
just don't quote bad sources. That's rule number one. Don't quote sources. At least in my opinion, like, you know, trying to cite Colonel McGregor, that's a recipe for disaster. If someone does that, because, you know, everybody can have their own opinion about the fella, but me personally, I don't put much stock into what he says at all, because, you know, for various reasons, I don't put stock into it. Usually, it's a bunch of half-ass statements, and also a bunch of misguided statements too. Usually, at least in my personal opinion, that's the way it is. So, you know, that's a good start. Probably not citing someone like that.
oh, let me see here. Oh man, I wish I could show y'all some of the statements that this guy has made, but I believe that the one that that fellow was working off of today was a statement that Douglas McGregor made, where he said that Iran could actually destroy all of our carriers that we have in the Middle East with relative ease. And I'd have to
They
say,
claimed he said that.
oh, they claimed that he said that.
Yeah, I didn't see him say it personally.
Oh, so I have to look into that and research that a little bit more. But also, I'd have to say one thing, though, that I find a little bit odd is that if he did say that, what expertise did he say that off of? Because from what I'm looking at, it looks like he served in the U.S. Army, not the Navy. So what type of knowledge would he have Like if I'm saying, like if we're speaking about a particular subject matter expert, not just us who we generally research stuff and talk about, someone who actually supposedly would have had experience on that topic to talk about it, how in the world does that guy have any knowledge of what Iran's anti-ship capabilities are, considering that his expertise while he was in the service would have been in the ground forces and the army, not the anti-ship capabilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran in naval terms? Wouldn't that be something that a subject matter expert from the Navy would know more about than him if he did say that? And and that's another thing that I gotta say, folks. And also someone said he's a Marine. Well, not according to what I'm seeing here. It looks like he was in the 1st Squadron of the 4th Cavalry of the U.S. Army, and he was in service from 1976 to 2004 in the U.S. Army. So it does not appear that he was at all in the Marines, and so that doesn't really seem to stand up, at least from what I can find. But outside of that, the thing that I find interesting, folks, is that sometimes you'll get, well, this is actually a little bit common. You'll get someone who was from the military, and like in the military, you have a specific branch that you're in, and then you have a specific job in that branch. And you generally are only trained and specialized in that specific job within your specific branch. So if you're in, like, say, logistics in the Army, you're going to know about trucks, loading, supply capacity, FOBs, those sorts of things, armories and all that, but you're not going to know everything. And then, like, they'll get out of the military, and then they'll talk about everything like they know about it, like they're just an oracle of wisdom. Like, they'll tell you how an air battle is going to work between an F-22 and a MiG-29, like that was their subject matter expertise, and they'll be like, I was in the military, trust me. And it's like, I get that you were in the military, and if you told me something about the job you were actually in, I would definitely believe you on that, but it's like you were in the Army, though. So what do you know about anti-ship capabilities, considering that that's not your field of expertise, just due to the job and the branch you were in? It's like, that's weird to me. But anyways, that's just my critique. But moving on from that, we are into the next one.
All right, the next one here goes to KG, who puts it at 20. And thank you very much, KG, as well, for that support. He said, the president of No More War. But sometimes war is necessary, though. Like, that's my thing. That's why, to me, it's pointless to try to, like, go on this whole thing of the president of peace type policy, because there's never going to be a time of actual, like, total peace in the world. That's just impossible. If you have so many countries around the world like we have, you're going to have so many conflicting interests. War is inevitable. So you're never going to have a moment of true peace. You have to have it. It's a necessary evil. And if you are too shy about war, sometimes you get squashed. So it's something you have to have. So with Iran, I would say I'm personally not criticizing the president on Iran. That's a problem that needs to be dealt with. And if he's willing to deal with it, it'd be wise to go ahead and deal with the Iranian problem than let it sit there and fester anymore. So that's my take. Also, by the way, another note, I think February the 24th is the State of the Union address, I believe. Check that real quick, Enforcer, and see if that's the case and make sure about that.
State of the Union. That will be, on the 24th of February.
Okay, so it's up to speculation here. Just taking a wild guess at it, based on the deployments we're seeing today, is the 17th. I would say the goal might be to try to get some level of success to report at the State of the Union, but they may try to wait until after the fact, because you got to think about it in political terms. If you're showing up to the State of the Union, and obviously he has a lot of opposition in there, that's very clear. If you're trying to show up and make sure that you're making the case that you've done good for the country, and he's trying to campaign on this idea of the peace president, then going in there and saying that you started a war with Iran may be something controversial. So he may try to wait until after the State of the Union to strike, but it may become imperative militarily and strategically to strike before the State of the Union. So I'm a little bit on the fence about that, about the timing, but you never can tell these days.
I would say that that's true. That's possibly true. And also on top of that, another thing that we have to consider, folks, is that military timetables kind of work on their own. So as long as there isn't a lot of civil administration kind of like meddling in it, it kind of will happen whenever it's ready. Because as long as they're told this is the plan, we're going to bomb Iran, then whenever the Department of Defense is ready to go, they'll be ready to go, and they'll start it off then. Of course, they'll run it by the president and be like, hey, we're ready to go, and we're about to do this. And then he'll go, okay, do it. And that's usually how it would work. But given how this administration has worked in the past, over the past year, it's highly likely that they could go, out the presses, and then this could take another 3 weeks or so to see anything happen, or a month maybe. It's always hard to say, because the last time anything happened, which was with Venezuela, it taught us that you really can't use predictable sort of plays that like would be guaranteed, like, oh yeah, these actions are definitely showing that this is happening. That sometimes necessarily doesn't show that that's going to be happening at that specific time. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And also, I see some people talking about, well, a lot of people in the Navy are cross-trained. Yeah, but this guy's from the Army, though. Like, and that's like the thing. Like, I get it that people in the Navy are going to know a little bit about this and that here and there. But if you're from the Army, surface combatant warfare for the U.S. Navy is well out of your roundhouse. And also on top of that, with these sorts of analysts, they usually just like hedge everything. Like, they don't say something like, I saw Terry Alila say, I grew up in a Navy family and this is why I would know a lot about the stuff. Well, yeah, but like, if you said, I know this because my family said, that's fine. But these guys will go out there, usually, like most military analysts that were, like, say, just in the Air Force and they did this one job, or they were just in the Marines or just in the Army and they did this one MOS, they'll then go out there as a military analyst and they'll be like, from my experience in the Marines as an infantryman, I will be able to tell you everything about how a nuclear submarine works. And it's like, you can't, though. It's like because that wasn't your field of expertise. Like, I can tell you all up front, everything that I say and talk about on the channel, I've read about and I know about, but if, like, say for example, if I'm an engineer with the Union Pacific for an ES-44 something, I'm not going to be able to come out here and tell y'all this is how the entire global supply chain works, and just say I did no research, I just know this because I was a railroader. It's like, that doesn't really add up, like, that's what I'm trying to say. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing is the point, because, in this country, if you say anything about, like, maybe someone in the military doesn't know this, then that's like basically sacrilege. But I've heard a lot of people from the military come out and make absolutely insane statements. Like, that guy in particular is heavily credited with the statement that Ukraine was going to fall in 3 days. Like, the guy we're talking about in particular. And, he's from the military, and so according to most people, I ought to be wrong and I ought to kiss his feet because he was from the military and he clearly knows more than me, but it's 4 years later now, and it ends up that my analysis was correct and his was wrong. So, sometimes they don't know what they're talking about. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And moving into our next one here, this one goes to Demanoak, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Demanoak, for that support. They said, with that many jets, do you think the USA and IDF can suppress all missile launchers?
Maybe. It's going to be a little tough, though. The Israelis will have a pretty good shot at defending themselves somewhat well if there's a coalition defense action to protect their airspace. But if they don't have that coalition air defense action, they'll probably be overwhelmed on the first volley, because the last time that we saw the 12-day war occur, the Israelis started to get overwhelmed air defense-wise by about the third day, even with coalition air defense support. So I'd actually have to say, I don't think that they really can have an easy time at it, because the Israelis didn't really have an easy time in the 12-day war. And if we were to expect or assume, based off of what we've been hearing, that Iran has rapidly increased their missile production capabilities and they've gotten their hands on more TELs, we can assume that the rate of fire this time is going to be a lot higher for a little bit longer. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Demanoak once again, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much once again, Demanoak, for the second support of the night. They said, if we take out all of the IRGC, would we really need to hit bunker sites that new government would let the USA remove with trying to dig through a bunch of damage?
Generally, you don't have to wipe out all the bunker sites. You just basically have to destroy the support apparatus that gives the government its authority in Iran. And then at that point, the government is basically boot to heels and running out of the country. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Chris Feilbach once again. And thank you very much, Chris, for that $20 support this time. He said, the marmot must think the rock is hot. Temperature, of course.
And I thank you so much for the support. And up with this channel, keep running. And the rock has to be kind of hot. I mean, it has to be, because he only has one hand on it. One little hand, one little paw. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and help with this channel to keep running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're about to be moving on to the next one, and Rick Hagewood said, it took a ton to work to get to the ESWS badge, but I don't know crap about ground pounder stuff or submarines. And yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, I don't even, like, I talk a lot, and I'll say this is how things work, but I'll be the first to tell y'all, my knowledge is surface level. Like, I won't be able to tell y'all how the sonar on an Arleigh Burke works specifically, and, you know, how in the world you make it work at different thermal layers and all that stuff. I can tell the basics, because I've read about it as much as I can, and even reading hundreds of pages of books, at the end of it all, I only have a surface level understanding of how most of this stuff works. And as far as mechanically, for our analysis sake, it works fairly well because, you know, on our end, we don't need to know exactly how the sonar works and all of its different mode settings and all that sort of stuff. We don't have to know that. We just have to know the general running theory of how it works and how that's going to interact with an Iranian system or any other adversary system. But for a lot of these people who go out there who are like the military analysts and they talk about stuff, you can like, coming from my position of even knowing just the surface level on most items, then we talk about it from there. They always talk about it like they just have like this intricate knowledge of the thing when they clearly couldn't have, and they clearly haven't done any research, because if they had done any research, it would line up with at least a surface level knowledge that I'd have, and most of the time it doesn't. Like, you know, some of these people will sit there and go, oh, Russia's really got it this time with the Armada. I remember when that was a huge thing from American analysts. America's wasted all of this money on the F-35 Lightning, and the Russians just bested us with the Su-57. That was the whole shebang in the early 2010s when I was growing up. Oh, the F-35 was a waste of money. Oh, it sucks. It's terrible. The Su-57 is so much cheaper and so much better. And once I've grown up, you realize the Su-57 is just absolutely terrible at the surface level in every way. Like, you don't even have to know the intricacies of how it works. It just doesn't even meet the minimum criteria. And the F-35 truly is a well-rounded platform that is really good, and it does have some shortcomings, but it's still better than any other comparable adversary out there. And then you'll hear military analysts like that go, oh, American equipment, oh, it's terrible. You know, the Russians, oh, they do all this stuff. And it's like, they don't even have the budget to beat us out technologically. They don't even have the industry to compete technologically. How the hell are they making this analysis? And I'll be honest with y'all, most of the analysis, in my opinion, most of the time, it's like paid for analysis, because a lot of them will always say that the Russians and the Chinese are just beating us every day of the week. And it's like, how the hell are they beating us every day of the week when they hardly even have the money to do that? It's like they can't. It's like, you know, like maybe if maybe we're talking about like a jank system like drone warfare where you can actually do that cheap in mass. Like, yeah, the Ukrainians definitely beat us in that every day, and the Russians at this point probably would too. But if you're talking about any sort of a system that's incredibly expensive and takes a whole bunch of money and research and development, they're never going to get there compared to us. They might create something that looks similar, but it's never going to be as good. And also on top of that, you know, it's like with the basic tactics or strategies of things, they never say, like, from what I've heard, some of them get it right. Like, I'll say a huge shout out to the Institute for the Study of War. They are truly a great analysis think tank. They get things dead on the nail. Like, I'll say stuff and then they put out a publication a day or two later, or they put it out a day before I make my statements or analysis on it, and usually it's lock and step with what I would think or say. But a lot of these analysts, they're just like freelancers out there that talk to like news agencies and stuff. I don't really know why in the world they're even called analysts, because most of the time they don't really get the stuff right. They don't even have like a surface level knowledge of the thing that they're speaking on either. But anyways, with that, I hope that is addressed. Also, by the way, folks, I got to say this. One time, folks, we were reached out to. I feel really honored about this, but at the same time, this is something I got to like say clearly. This is not a good thing. We were reached out to by a news agency one time to be an expert on intermediate range and intercontinental ballistic missiles for an article that they were going to write. And we had to just tell them, we were like, look, our talk on it is good, but we're not actual subject matter experts on it. We know like the surface level of how they work, but we wouldn't be able to tell you the deep intricacies of how they work and actually operate. And then they had to go find another analyst. But that actually happened at the time.
Actually, they reached out to me over email and was like, "Hey, would you like to be on to be the missile expert on Reuters or something?" And I was like, "Hey, I don't know. I don't know if I could qualify for a missile expert." And I'm like, "I know a little bit, but I'm like, I don't know if expert is the right title or not." So after that was said, they just went silent after that. It's like, I think they realized, oh, I think we got the wrong guy here. It's like, I'm not sure what gave them the impression I was a missile expert in the first place. I was like, I'm not sure what gave them that impression.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. Also, Jacob Steve said, yeah, that's why we have the hypersonic and they don't. Oh, wait. But here's the thing, though. Like, this is the problem with, like, surface level knowledge, like I guess you have, is that the U.S. was the one who invented hypersonic technology in the 50s. Like, go and research it and you'll see that. We came up with the concept and the idea for hypersonic weaponry 70 years ago, and we never made it because it's entirely obsolete and pointless, because the ICBM completely made that weapon system moot. Why the hell would you take 4 hours to fly a hypersonic missile at a atmospheric trajectory towards the United States of America when an ICBM can do that in 30 minutes? It cuts down on the time, it's much more efficient, it's a lot faster, and speed is what we're looking for in terms of first strikes with nuclear weaponry, which is really what the hypersonic is more so designed around. So if you knew that, you would know, well, that's really stupid, because the Chinese and the Russians are basically going back to 70-year-old technology that we came up with, and then they're just basically turning it into a weapon nowadays that's usable. And on top of that, if the hypersonic weapons were so good, why in the world is Russia's truly hypersonic Zircon missile being shot down by Patriot interceptors? According to the Russians and according to all of our enemies in the world, these hypersonics are completely indefensible against. They can make it through any air defense system that they have, that we have. They can't even make it through a Patriot that was in mass production 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So that generally puts the whole idea to shame and kind of makes it clearly out to be these things were obsolete 70 years ago, and there's nothing but a bunch of buzz and hype talk about them today by a whole bunch of dictatorships that want to act like they're advanced by going back to a 70-year-old technology and bringing it into being so they can pretend like they're the first ones to the punch. But anyways...
Yeah. Also, by the way, I see people asking about something here. I've been asked by about 3 or 4 people in the chat over the last time you addressed that question there. People are saying, what do you think is going to happen with Iran when these attacks start, with the U.S. forces hitting Iran? Well, how do you think it's going to work? I generally think overall the strategy, because this is based on what the U.S. has previously done. The current president has a very strong aversion to long, drawn-out wars. So while we may see massive deployments to the region, which would suggest that they're trying to go for a prolonged conflict, I think the reason why they're doing that is they want to have enough overwhelming firepower in the opening hours of the attack to basically shock and awe, kind of like we did in the past a long time ago in the Middle East. They want to shock and awe Iran basically into submission, into surrender right off the bat, and they want to take out probably all the air defense first. So probably go for all of that, then they'll probably start striking strategic sites, and then probably after all that, if they don't get any type of surrender or concessions, they'll probably go for the government sites after that. So they're hoping that the Iranians surrender, or they're hoping they flee. I think that's the objective. I don't think they want to get dragged into like a multi-month long war or even a years long war. They want to avoid that at all costs. Because like I said, it kind of goes against the whole grain of the idea of being the peacetime president if you start a war that lasts for, perhaps months or years. So they'll try to go for that. But the problem is, though, I don't think the Iranians are going to surrender that quickly. I don't think they're going to do that. And we may underestimate how hard it is to actually take out all of their defenses. While we're very capable of doing it, I'm not sure if it'll go as smooth as they're thinking. I may be underestimating the U.S. forces potentially, but we'll have to wait and see. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would have to generally agree with that. I think that might also be a reason why they're kind of hesitating, but at the end of it all, they're going to have to go through this. And another thing, to get back to the original discussion that was had that kind of started this whole rabbit hole we're on right here, which is about the peace president and such. Generally, I don't know why anyone would I don't even know why that's a big thing to the public about peace and war, whether they want just nothing but peace and nothing but war, because the world's a dynamic place. You don't get a choice every day of saving money and spending money sometimes. Sometimes you just have to spend money. Other days, you get to save money. That sometimes you're really out of control of the variables at play. And a lot like in those situations, like say, where your car, gets a deflated tire, you got to pay for it to get patched or completely replace the tire, or where you get a broken arm, or you basically have to go to the hospital and you have to get it checked out and get a splint and such things like that. In these sorts of situations in foreign policy, we don't really get to decide whether we want to have war or not. It kind of just happens or it doesn't. Either we're able to avoid it or we have to go to war. War is a tool of foreign policy in our toolbox, and I don't really know why people are so adamant on trying to avoid it, because with like Iran, this is a necessary conflict that we have to go to. If we don't go to it, our situation is going to be far worse in many other ways than one. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, because in reality, I would have never campaigned on that. That's a ridiculous campaign point to say we're never going to have a war and it's all going to be peace. I mean, sometimes you have to have a war, and this is a war that we've been talking about since 2023 that has to happen. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $50 support once again from Chris Feilbach. And thank you very much, Chris, for the extremely generous support tonight. I think he's throwing in a combined $150 support. And we do
Dang.
appreciate that. He said, in reference to people salivating over hypersonics, generally, if your analysis claims that optimizing for a single variable, for example, speed, when multiple variables are at play, you have a really stupid analysis. And if that was optimal, everyone would be doing it right now.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. It doesn't really, like, the hypersonic just doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Speed doesn't equal everything, and generally the speed concept was built around the idea, at least for Russia and China, that NATO radar systems are not that advanced to be able to pick up a target moving that quickly, so they would never even be able to see the target, to lock onto it, to shoot it down. Problem is, NATO radars are incredibly sensitive and fine-tuned, as compared to Russian and Chinese ones, which we've seen so far in Iran and Venezuela don't even appear to really work at all. So we can easily pick those things up, and an interceptor can easily adjust to be able to create, an apogee to be able to reach that missile and hit it no matter what speed it's traveling at. That's why Patriot missile systems in Ukraine have had such a good interception rate, even against real hypersonics like the Zircon. And I think that's what people are kind of missing out on, because every single hypersonic in the world is like the Zircon. If a Patriot can shoot down a Zircon, a Patriot could have a pretty good chance at shooting down most every hypersonic from Iran, China, and Russia. Even our own long-range hypersonic weapon, the LRHW, could probably be shot down by a Patriot as well. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that the best I can, Chris. Very good point. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sidato Hosoda, who puts in a 10 and said, this is the final battle, and Pahlavi will return.
And hopefully we'll see that this is the final battle. And a humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Miss Paula Thomas. And thank you very much, Paula, for that $10 support. And they said, I can confirm that citizens of the Islamic Republic of Iran refer to themselves as Iranian and have done so for over 50 years. And there was a boy in my class at school who was Iranian, and I'm now 70.
And I thank you so much for your support. And that's true. That's why that's why I go through the pain of saying the Islamic Republic of Iran. Everyone's like, why do you keep saying that? It's because the Iranian people don't like the Iranian government being called the Iranian government, because a lot of them don't view it as their government because it supports a radical theological agenda instead of the interests of the Iranian citizenry. So I hope that does address that well. And a humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Poop. And thank you very much, Poop, for that support. They said, it's worth noting, I deployed with 1-82 and 09, 12 OIF, OEF. Their social media went dark this past week. They never did that, even during OIF and OEF. Each brigade had social media throughout. It's cooking.
Huh. That's interesting to hear. And also, I got to say, very interesting to hear your story of your service. And I got to say that that's probably a real sign that something is cooking. I definitely agree with you. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jack, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Jack, as well. He said, what are the chances that China invades Taiwan once the U.S. strikes Iran?
The chances are rising with each passing month, I cannot deny, and there was also some concerning statements made by the president today where we might stop arms shipments to Taiwan after we talk to the Chinese, the communist Chinese, that is. And so I can't really tell you. It's getting on up there, though, I'll say that. And I would assume at this point that we might see an attempted naval invasion or an attempted war with Taiwan by the early part of 2027, probably. So with that, I hope that is addressed to the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Craig Humphreys. And thank you very much, Craig, for that $10 support. We do appreciate that. He did not leave a comment. But once again, thank you very much for helping keep the channel running. We also have a 10 from Live Animal. He said, another 2 to 3 weeks. The protests are already underway in Iran. And who will save another tens of thousands of people?
Well, that's a tough one to answer there. It's definitely going to lead to more bloodshed, what's going on the ground right now. And that's also why, once again, I'd say that strikes need to happen this weekend. Right now, I can't, like, as far as deaths on the ground now, we are literally at the cusp of striking Iran. And these fatalities would be unfortunate, but not in vain, because they'll be getting the ball rolling for what's coming this weekend. But if we start to stall for a really long amount of time afterwards, again, then the U.S. is just getting even more blood on our hands due to our lack of an ability to respond rapidly to a developing situation. So I
Do
do
you think they got tipped off though? Like, do you think the protesters got tipped off? Because I find it fascinating that we're right on the cusp of strikes from the United States forces on Iran, and all of a sudden the protesters. And I mean, I will recognize, like, very commendable for those protesters to come back out because they're already getting shot at by the Iranian forces, and they knew they were going to get shot at, but they came out anyway. So it's like, what changed in their minds to make them want to come back out? Because honestly, they have every reason in the world not to, because they know they're going to get shot at, and they don't have weapons to fight back. So I wonder if they got tipped off, because something clearly changed.
Yeah, I would say that is interesting. Maybe they did get tipped off, because it is weird how they all just surged out into the streets just today, just a couple of days before the weekend's coming around.
Yeah, it does seem like that. I still think, and people were giving me hell for this when I was saying it about a week or two ago. I still think that the strikes by U.S. forces on Iran, it will give enough of a distraction for the IRGC to allow the protest to have a real chance of success. The protesters obviously have to get weaponry, because if they don't have the weaponry, then it doesn't matter how much of a break they get. They won't be able to actually maintain control against the Islamic regime. So they might provide them weapons, possibly. They might be able to maybe take the weapons from the police stations that get taken over, that the Islamic regime is currently withholding. They might be able to get those, possibly. But I feel like that will give the protesters a pretty good shot at taking their own government back.
I think so. I think it probably will. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, by the way, a big shout to JS Ghost 5863 through an A100MX. And thank you very much, JS Ghost, for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you massively for the support. JX Ghost. I believe that is Pesos. And call this man Jeff Pesos, because he's throwing in that support. And I gotta thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have, man, that wind out there, I've never experienced this except outside of a hurricane. Like, that is crazy how that wind is hitting the building. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to PSH, who puts in a 10. They said, do you guys think that Gerald R. Ford is a bluff to make the IRGC think they have more time? First-time commentator, by the way, long-time fan. And thank you from Canada. Please liberate us next, they say, in their own words. And they said, LSA for life.
And I thank you so much for the support. I think y'all are fine being Canada. Canada's cool, and y'all just do what you do, you know. You vote in the elections and everything, and you know, just be happy being Canada, you know. It'll be good for y'all. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support, and I'd have to say it might be, we probably would want to have the second carrier group in the region, so that way if the Iranians try and strike, we'll have even more air defense. But it might also not be necessary in current war planning, because for right now, with the amount of Air Force assets that we have in the area, we could easily start to shoot down a large amount of Iranian missiles and drones pretty effectively, even without that second carrier group. So might be a distraction, might just be making the Iranians think that they have a little bit more time, because we're going to wait for it to arrive. So I hope that has addressed that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, there's some guy in the chat down here that is just going berserk, telling me to open my window. If I open this window right now, I promise you, my entire desk setup is going to get blown off the whole desk into the floor. It's going to probably blow everything off my kitchen counter. It's going to destroy my place if I open this window right now. Like, that wind is legitimately like hurricane force winds out there. I don't know what the miles per hour is. I think it's like 60 plus miles an hour or something like that, but it is literally howling outside. That is crazy, by the way. But jumping into our next one, this one goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 10. They said, whoever is in charge of the protests in Iran needs to stop if they don't have a plan. They can't simply use the Iranians as cannon fodder.
I would generally agree, and I hope that they do have a plan this time. Otherwise, more lives may be needlessly lost when the time is not ripe. So big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Live Animal once again, who said, what is Abbas Aragachi asking another 2 weeks for? To crush the second wave of Iranian protest? And we'll give him of those 1 to 2 weeks, because this is a bit of a mess.
I actually did not hear about him asking for 1 to 2 more weeks. At least from what I heard. So unfortunately, I had to declare ignorance on that. But I do thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep running. And we are on to the next one.
We also have a $10 support from Waka Waka What, and thank you very much, Waka, for that support. He said, gotta work tonight and can't catch the stream live, but stopping in real quick to drop a little something for y'all's hard work and great reporting that you bring every night, and grab a hot and spicy live chat for me.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and the kind words. I thank you greatly, and we greatly appreciate that. And I got to say, that's wonderful that folks like you enjoy our work and help to support it so we can continue to do our coverage and research like we do every day. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, I saw some people saying, wow, those winds must be strong. I just haven't been saying anything throughout the whole stream, but it literally sounds like I'm in the Himalayas. Like, the wind is whistling around the building right now, and you can actually hear it out there. Like, it sound like it's just so loud. Like, I don't know if y'all can hear it on the microphone, but it is actually quite loud out here. My windows aren't cracking, though. My place is built firmly.
Well, my place, I won't get into a whole bunch of details, but I'm getting a lot more direct head-on wind than you are, like by a lot. So I'm literally, my building is like literally just a straight up and down. Like, so when the wind hits it, it is hitting like just a flat building, and it is taking the full brunt of it. So it's hitting straight at my window. Like the whole thing is, the windows are literally popping and cracking. I've never really heard windows make sounds like this. That's why I was wondering if it was going to break or something. This is some powerful wind outside. Like, this is the type of wind that people were worried about, like damage being done to their house in a hurricane type wind. It's really insane.
Let's see. Let me pull this up. Wind speeds. I can't see exactly where, but I'm gonna pull it up. Crazily enough, man, it's only like 20-mile-per-hour winds according to like the weather stations.
Nah, this is definitely not 20 miles an hour winds.
Hold up, sorry. Wind advisory in effect from 10 p.m. this evening to 6 a.m. Wednesday. Southwest winds 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts of 45 to 55 expected. So,
oh, these got to be 55. Like this has got to be. I've never really seen wind quite like this.
I mean, it is actually pretty strong, folks. And when you get out there, it's strong enough that it can actually blow you away. Like, no joke. We were up on a hill one time around here, and those gusts were going on, and we didn't really think that the wind was a big deal because, you know, wind in Alabama never was a big deal as to tornadoes. So we went up to the top of this hill, and we almost got blown off the side of it a couple of 100 feet to our deaths from how strong the wind was. We had to basically, like, fight against the wind. Basically like grabbing the ground and like climbing against the wind to get off of that hill so that we didn't get blown away off of it. That happened a while ago. That was like in the middle of December. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, this is a winter storm rolling in, by the way. That's why the winds are doing this. Tomorrow it's supposed to be snowing like 4 to 5 inches or something like that down here in the valley. So that's what this is all about. We're actually going to get snow, or at least they claim we're going to get snow tomorrow. So 4 to 5 inches of snow, that's crazy work. But jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Kevin Turner, who puts in 10. He said, isn't it in Russia's best interest to mine the strait as well to get the price of the oil to go up?
Not really. Because if the prices of oil go up, yes, it does help them out a little bit, but at the same time, it also makes the price of oil go up in Russia, meaning that the price of refined fuels even also goes up as well. So while it might be beneficial to some companies, it's going to actually damage the Russian economy overall even more, at least for the consumer end of things, and also for transportation and such. It would actually be a little bit damaging to the Russians. So I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping the channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Live Animal, who puts in a 10. And Live Animal said, let's not forget that Ayatollah is old and sick, and probably prioritizes his legacy of making the West capitulate more than anything else. No deal.
Oh, maybe that's so. I'd have to say that's an interesting analysis, and it looks like they might be working off of that right now. So big thanks to you for the support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Stanley So Manley, who said, let's send supplies for the people of Iran.
Supplies. I say let's send a little gift to the Islamic Republic of Iran's government itself. I think we ought to give the Iranian people a regime change. I think they'll like that. And so a big thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to the DJ Waves, who puts in a 10 and said, funniest thing is the UK has no marmots, and I'm from the UK, and what a shame we don't have them.
You know, what a real shame, but y'all have something else that is really a precious creature. Let me go pull it up for y'all. Here we are. I believe this is, let me check the, oh yes it is. Y'all have this creature, which is equally precious, the European badger.
Precious, man, that thing's like a grenade.
Now look at it, look how precious and cute this creature is. It truly is something.
Man, he's a man, any badger is like the badger, man. Those things are vicious.
No, this thing is, look at it. It's like a little dog. It's cute looking.
I think will tear your ass up.
Man, let me pull that up. European honey badger is...
No, it's not a honey badger. I think it's just a European badger.
Is it aggressive? Oh, yeah. See, yes, honey badgers are renowned for their extreme aggression, though they're not typically aggressive towards humans unless provoked or cornered. See,
Yeah, but you put in a honey badger, though. If you put in just European badger, that's a different animal.
But this creature, though, Matthew, is the European badger. Look at it. Cute creature.
Man, I'll tell you what, those things right there, they'll mess you up. Those little things right there.
You know what they also have? They have the British hedgehog. These critters.
Oh, yeah, I like those things.
These are precious critters. Y'all actually have some really cool little animals in the UK. I love all of your native animals because they are very cute looking. Britain is the land of cute animals. Australia is the land of animals that will give you night terrors. And Africa is the place where you just straight up die because I think everything in the sub-Saharan region is basically just a killing machine. The lions, the cheetahs, basically anything really when you think of it. The hyenas, it's literally just...
I hate cheetahs.
You really do?
Yeah, I can't stand it. Messing up marriages like that.
I don't understand this, Joe. I don't understand.
You said cheetahs? Cheaters?
Oh, cheetahs. Oh, no, I get it. I thought you meant cheetahs. I thought that was a slang thing, like a cougar. I was like, I know, I've never heard of this one. I was like, this is news to me. But look at it. The cheetah. That's actually a pretty cool animal, but deadly.
Look at that damn thing. The divorce attorneys love it.
Man, they do. Man, look at them. I mean, they're actually pretty cool animals. But the thing about African animals is that they always look cool, and they are really neat looking, but they're very deadly. And then that also goes for an animal that's not even native to Africa, which is the tiger. This is more so native to Southeast Asia, but these are very dangerous. As a matter of fact, that's why they are being pushed almost to extinction, is because the populations of Southeast Asia, they basically go out of their way to kill tigers whenever they can find them, because if they don't, they might just, kill you in the middle of the night without anyone even knowing. So that's why they generally go after them so much, and also it's for a whole bunch of other reasons, but that's one of the reasons. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rye Guy SR, who puts in a 10. He said, it seems a more involved operation against Iran would be a great distraction from current events. LOTLSA, and take one from the chat.
And a big thanks to you for the support, and it might be, but I also think that this, in this instance, unlike other things like Cuba and Venezuela, this is wildly beneficial to American interests, and I'm generally in support of this action that we're seeing in the Middle East right now. So a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the live chat question is going to go to none other than Robert Massey. He said, do you guys know of any ground forces being deployed this time toward Iran?
We haven't heard of any significant ground force deployments towards Iran. It's mostly naval and air force deployments, and then the army is there for ground air defense purposes. So not really any offensive ground forces for that matter. So I hope that is addressed it the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Crispy, who put in a 5. And thank you very much, Crispy, for throwing in that support once again. Hey! We do appreciate that. And we also have a 5 from Robert Krogan. He said, good evening, Enforcers and LSA, and a little something for the effort.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Robert Krogan, for the effort. We greatly appreciate that. And I got to thank you greatly for the support and helping this team to keep rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Andrew Wright. And he said, the best news broadcast of the century. YouTubers are the news. And keep it up, boys. And thank you very much, Andrew, for the kind words. We do appreciate that, by the way.
I thank you for that. That's very kind of you. That's a kindness you say there. And I thank you so much for the kindness and the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Carson. He said, free Persia.
Oh, I hope we can only hope and pray, you know what I mean? And so a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Man, the Shah's the only one that can do it. Oh boy. Moving into our next one here. This one goes to you, 535 Medic, who puts in a 5 and said, if Iran hit a carrier, they would get to see the sunrise 2 times in one day.
Wait a minute. Hey, is this some sort of a reference to Japan? I'm just kidding with you.
No, I think it has something to do with being nuked.
Yeah, 2 times. You know who else was nuked 2 times? The Japanese.
Oh, we don't talk about the war.
Well, no, that's the Germans. We talk about the war with the Japanese. They like to talk
about the war.
You know, the Japanese, though, it's kind of funny, though. In Japan, folks, this is like the cultural trend with Japan. It's like, oh, World War II. It was so sad. we got nukes for no reason. It's like, did y'all know what y'all did in like mainland China? It's like y'all were literally doing worse than what the Germans were doing most of the time. It's like, and also, like, speaking at least of that, of the island hopping campaign and the brutality of that, it's like, it kind of came with purpose. Like, when you look back at it, like, why the nukes were used, because nobody wanted to go onto the mainland of Japan and basically deal with Iwo Jima and Okinawa but the entirety of the mainland of Japan, nobody wanted to deal with that. And they were also heavily encouraging that. It's like, I really love Japan and their culture and their people and everything, but at the same time, though, what happened in World War II wasn't like a tragedy. It was, it was what we had to do. It was necessary. Otherwise, there would have been endless suffering and lives lost by the U.S. and the Japanese on the mainland if we had to forcibly invade it.
Now, I would say the nuclear bomb dropping on Japan, I would say it's a tragedy personally, because it's for example, like if Russia, or let's say Ukraine, had a nuke, I personally would not advocate for Ukraine nuking Russia. I don't advocate nuclear weapons usage at all. But the reason why the situation with Japan kind of made sense at the time that they did it is because nobody really knew the power of a nuclear weapon. So it was kind of like a proof of concept that they did with that. And also, like you said, they were pretty much determined to keep going. So it was more of like a utilitarian calculus. They figured if we hit them with the nuke, they'll stop and we'll save lives overall that way. But ultimately, though, I mean, it claimed a lot of innocent civilian life, like people that weren't even combatants. It just took out everything, leveled the place, took it out, took the people out. Truly, like I don't really ever find any usage of nuclear weapons at all to be warranted. It's just something that's like a bad option that you might have to be forced into using one day as a country, but it's never really a win for anybody.
Well, I mean, I'd actually have to disagree with you on that one, especially back then, because I think you might be. A lot of people really don't focus on this part when it comes to Japan, but we had already killed far more people just dropping napalm bombs on Tokyo. We like if you look at the firebombing of Tokyo, and let me pull that up for the casualty count. Firebombing of Tokyo. And then I don't even think this is an accurate count because the fires burned so heavily, most of the time, people's remains ceased to exist. But 105,000 people died in the firebombing of Tokyo. And there's an example of the city on fire right there in a picture taken from a B-29. And that was a far larger amount of deaths. And I'd also have to say that back then, looking at it in a historical context, wars were fought a lot differently. Like, you did not see a lack of civilian casualties and precision strikes in the Second World War. Everything from every side was always a mass bombing campaign that would basically attempt to level an entire city. So the Germans would do that on the British would do that on the Germans, we did that on the Germans would do that on the Soviets would do it back to the Germans, the US did that on Japan did that on China, everybody did this. I mean, like, in the modern day, this would be entirely unacceptable, but back then, this was the way the total war was fought. And I would say that the nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were definitely necessary because the Japanese had shown that they were willing to fight until the very last, and the atrocities that they were willing to conduct to fight to the very last made it incredibly clear that dropping nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and causing the heavy destruction and deaths that we're seeing there would be far more preferable than the deaths of millions of Japanese citizens and hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million American soldiers if we were to invade the mainland of Japan, which would have been far worse in the amount of deaths that would have been caused.
Yeah, I mean, that's right on a utilitarian sense. But, ultimately, like, that's why it's so important to make sure that we prevent wars and maintain deterrence, because you don't want to get forced into a situation like that. Because I personally think that if we get into a global conflict like today, like let's say Russia attacks NATO or it goes sideways and World War III starts, which it probably will. It's just a matter of when at this point, because the world's gone berserk and the old world order, as they say, is gone. So it's a dangerous time in geopolitics. If we go back into a World War III situation, those atrocities are going to return because nobody's going to abide by the Geneva Conventions. Like, I'm not naive. Nobody's going to abide by that. It's going to go back to pure barbarism, where you see things like fire bombings happening and stuff like that. It'll go right back to it, and it's going to be atrocious. And someone's going to use a nuke. Naturally, someone's going to use it because why wouldn't they? It's eventually going to happen again. And once that door is open, it's going to be horrific. But it's just like war is just never a good thing. Like you have a bunch of bad options, and you just have to pick from the bad options, the best of the bad options, basically.
Oh yeah, but I mean, if you're in a war because Japan bombed Pearl Harbor and killed 2,000 Americans, and then they killed millions of Chinese on the mainland, and every time we've tried to fight them on an island, when they would feign a surrender, they'd whip out a grenade and pull the pin and take out as many Americans as they can each time. I mean, it's like, it kind of makes a option like that at the end of a war fought like that a lot easier to make rather than, it's like, oh, the poor Japanese, this is terrible. Was like, the Japanese in World War II were certainly not the poor Japanese. I mean, they were the bloodthirsty Japanese, basically.
I hope Russia doesn't think like that because they have all the reason in the world to use a nuke on Ukraine and that logic.
Well, no, because the Ukrainians aren't going around genociding Russians.
Well, I mean, Ukraine won't give up. So, I mean, Japan wouldn't either, and we nuked them.
But you have to understand, Japan was conducting atrocities, like even by then standards, it was crimes against humanity. I mean, do you know like how the Japanese would force civilians to go jump off of cliffs and end themselves because the Americans were coming and they didn't want it? Well, I mean, you're kind of pushing me to that
but don't
point
bring that up though. Don't bring that up.
Well, yeah, but you're kind of pushing me to that point to have to bring up the realities of what we were actually fighting against. I mean, you can't like argue off of a modern lens like, oh, it's Ukraine and Russia and the Ukrainians aren't conducting a massacre, but clearly the Japanese doing everything they did in Nanking and Beijing and all the other major cities like Shanghai and such. That isn't really a proper comparison between the kind of evil that the Japanese were in the Second World War versus what the Russians and the Ukrainians are today. I mean, even the Russians pale in comparison with the atrocities they can conduct today versus what the Japanese did on a literal daily basis during the Second World War.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I still believe the same thing I said earlier. It was atrocious that we had to drop the nuke on them. At the time, it was probably the better decision, even though it's still atrocious. But it's just tough. Also, somebody said, why can't it be brought up? The topic he was bringing up there is something that YouTube does not look kindly on, like that specific topic. So we can't bring that one up whatsoever. Otherwise, it gets videos age restricted. That's why we can't bring that up. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to JS Ghost, who puts in a 10. Who said, do you think the air campaign in Iran can beat the 100 hours achieved in the first Desert Storm in Iraq and Kuwait?
Hey, can you reread that one again?
Do you think the air campaign in Iran can beat the 100 hours achieved in the first Desert Storm in Iraq, Kuwait?
It possibly can. I mean, there is a large grouping of U.S. Air Forces in the area, so there is definitely a possibility. And also with our more advanced technologies and strike capabilities these days and reconnaissance gathering abilities, it could also be a lot more effective as well. So a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Stanley So Manly, who said, did you guys get the Valor Atomics War 250 micro-nuclear reactor you ordered?
Yes.
It's at Hill Air Force Base. Yeah, it's at Hill Air Force Base right now, apparently, up there. Apparently they have the fuel with it. Like, it came with the thing in a separate aircraft, so it's up there. I'm not sure where it's going after that. I think they might be bringing it to the mid part of the state after this for testing, perhaps, or something. But, yeah, we got it in the state. Not my order, though. But, Enforcer, what say you?
It was my order. I ordered it via Amazon Prime. I'm just kidding, by the way. But it did arrive at Hill, and it's sitting around up there in a hangar somewhere, so that's really cool. And I think that's just so neat, a portable nuclear reactor. How cool. It's like we're living in the utopia that the 1950s imagined the future would be now. It's so neat. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Adam McLean. Also, LJ Jottis said it was moved already to the Price area.
Oh.
Interesting. Yeah, I was wondering when they were going to move it. Apparently, it's already been moved, according to our in-house resident in Utah. But moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Adam McLean, who put in that 5 and said, what is the minimum age threshold for the U.S. Senate and U.S. House? And would you be interested in either one of those positions?
I think the minimum age for the House is 25, and the minimum age for the Senate is 35 years old, if I'm not mistaken. And I would be interested in it, but the problem is, though, is that in the state of Utah, my chances for electability would be a little low, because out here in Utah currently, and I'm not saying this is like a disdain point of Utah, but this is how it is, basically all of their representatives and senators are Mormons. So I'm not a Mormon, so I probably wouldn't really have a good chance with the constituency in Utah of getting a seat as a representative, or for that matter, a senator, sadly, in this state. So I probably would have to really try either incredibly hard and just be a wildly popular candidate, even with that going against me, at least for this state, or I'd have to move to another state and then try and run for a political campaign in another state for one of those positions, and then that might not be popular because I probably wouldn't have lived in the state long enough for a lot of people to consider me to be a citizen of the state and truly in line with their beliefs and ideals for what they want. But I do hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Jules, who put in a 2 and said, worried about Russia letting Cuba be a launch pad.
Well, Cuba doesn't really count as a launch pad these days because of ICBMs. It became pointless base weaponry in a place like Cuba, so I don't really think that would be too much of a concern. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Eric Brown, who said, Pitbull for Super Bowl LXI.
Man,
I heard he comes up before the dog.
Man, I was about to say that, man. I show before the dog. But a big thanks to you for support. Maybe. But with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Jason Bewley, and thank you very much, Jason, for that support. He said, my internet is down. I'm pissed.
I'm sorry to hear that, and I do thank you for the support.
I just sent a message, though.
Hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. What's going on here?
Up here? Something ain't right.
Something's amiss. Something's a foul, folks. Something's a foul. But big thanks to you for the support nonetheless. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to sqaure 357, who puts in a 2. They said, Ramadan just started February 17th through March the 19th.
And interesting. That's actually quite interesting there. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Hugh, who put in a $2 support once again. And thank you very much, Hugh, for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And it is now time, folks, to jump into our live chat questions, our Morse code decoders, and anything else they might pop up as well. But thank you all once again for that super chat support tonight and helping keep us on the air. But jumping into our Morse code decoders, we have Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroic Fluffness, Kush, Cobra Turk, Sire, and Brian. They said the Morse says the U.S. is only sending over a flying and sailing armada today, nothing to worry about in LLT, LSA.
And ding, 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 ding. That's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. And I can congratulate y'all greatly for getting that Morse code message correct, because it's y'all time and time again who have always been getting this correct and truly are doing incredible work right there with the Morse code deciphering. So a humongous shout out to y'all once again. And with that in mind, folks, it's time for us to move on into our live chat questions. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, however, we'll only be able to gather about 3 or so. And then we'll be rounding this thing on out for the night. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And the first one here is going to go to Lee and Kate, who said, could Russia help Iran mine the strait? The oil prices skyrocketing will help Russia, and it seems like it would be in Russia's best interest to do so.
Generally, from what I would understand, it probably would not. Because right now, the Russian oil companies are in pretty bad straits, and it would help them to be able to generate further profits. But generally, with the amount of oil capacity that they're able to ship out, even an increase in profits up to the margins that we believe would happen probably wouldn't really allow for them to even break even then. So they would still be losing money. It would just be at a slower pace. On the flip side, however, while the Russian companies, the oil companies, would still be dealing with a fairly rough time, even with the massive hike in prices, the Russian public would have to deal with the increasingly high price of gas, which would reflect in every part of the economy and consumer goods and such that have to be transported. And so, with that in mind, I'd have to say that generally it probably would actually hurt them more than it would help them. And at least in my opinion, and I might be incorrect on that because I might not have the handle properly economically on that to be able to speak on it properly, but that would be my understanding of it. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Sean Stevenson, who said, do you think Ukraine will attempt to strike the Russian military forces in the Strait of Hormuz?
I would doubt it. I would generally, everyone will avoid hitting the Russians wherever they may be, because that would largely start a conflict with the Russians. So we would generally just conduct operations against the Iranians and not against the Russians. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be none other than Cyprian, who said, what will be the first target that Israel and the U.S. will attempt to destroy inside of Iran?
If they were working off of what I think they should hit first, it would be air defense systems, and it would be the Iranian Navy at Bandar Abbas, and also other areas along the Iranian coast. Those would be the two #1 targets to hit simultaneously in the advent of the outbreak of war. So Going off of my analysis, it should be those two. They might do something else, though, but that would be the smartest thing to do because that would generally defang them from trying to shoot down a U.S. aircraft operating over Iran, and that would also defang them from being able to try and mine the Strait of Hormuz. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to say that we're entirely honored and wildly appreciative to have had so many of y'all here watching this channel tonight. We had a peak viewership of 19.1 thousand people, and 140,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. Holy moly! And I got to say, we were entirely honored to know that so many of y'all continue to watch this channel as your primary source of news, and I have a feeling that we're probably going to be seeing a lot more breaking news coming out here in the near future. So if y'all would like to, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because the very same kind of coverage you're seeing here right now is the kind of coverage that we make 24/7, 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night, but Mondays. And when Tuesdays come around, we cover the Monday night news included in the stream as well. So basically 7 days a week coverage. Also, if there is anything major that happens, like, the end of the world, the apocalypse, a nuclear exchange, or something more conventional, like, say, the U.S. bombing Iran, we will go live immediately, no matter what time of day, to start covering that major breaking news development when it happens. So subscribing right now could pay dividends here in the near future, especially when the U.S. starts military operations against Iran, because historically...
Whoa. We aren't paying dividends.
Well, I mean... It's a figure of speech. It's a figure of speech. But it will probably pay dividends for y'all in the future, because as soon as the bombs fall on Iran, historically, we usually are one of the first people live covering that development in real time, and also speaking about what is happening and what's going to most likely happen here in the near future. So please do make sure to subscribe, because if any time would be a good time to subscribe, now is a very good time. So with that, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is a short war video to be made, I, the Enforcer, will be the one making that short war video for all of y'all tomorrow. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow on the short war video, maybe midday, most likely if there's enough news, and definitely at 10 p.m. Eastern on the next Nightly War News stream to cover the rest of the news throughout tomorrow. And if there is something crazy that happens, like the Enforcer mentioned, we will go live whenever it happens. We're basically on call like a doctor, but we're doctors of geopolitics. Not really, though, because I don't have a doctorate, but it's close enough. But anyways, we'll see you all tomorrow, and thank you all for joining us once again tonight, all 140,000 plus people that chose us as your news source, and we appreciate every single one of you for choosing us as your news source. And we'll see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Hiram Slava, get some rest, and good night.